Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the MinnMax Show podcast, place about games, friends, getting better. My name is Ben Hansen. Thank you all for being here, joined by old, wide-awake Kyle Hilliard.
Hello, wide awake.
Also joined by Jeff Markiafava.
I am also awake.
And we have Janet, the world traveler Garcia. Welcome, Janet.
I'm wide awake.
Take it away.
Y'all remember that song?
I don't know that song.
No.
Really? Someone on YouTube, tell me if you know that song.
Okay, just based on that one sentence sung? Okay.
Yes, 3,000%.
Do you all, I know I'm a dork, and that's what this podcast is about in a lot of ways, and I apologize for this being a dorky place to talk about games, friends, and getting better, but I have a list in my phone of like karaoke songs. So if I'm just out in the world and I hear a song where I'm like, I never would have thought of that in a million years for a karaoke song, but I think secretly it might be kind of a really fun song just to like, surprise everybody. And no one would see it coming, but everybody knows the words. And I was in a gas station this morning and the song was like the perfect surprise, stupid karaoke song, which is Matchbox 20's 3 a.m. Where it's like we all it's 3 a.m. I must be lonely.
Must be lonely.
There we go. I think it'd be fun because it's. Am I wrong, Kyle? You probably know 80% of the lyrics to that freaking song.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Thank
honestly.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
It's a good list you have there. I've seen it before. I've been privy to it.
Still, number one karaoke song for me.
Exclusive content.
Ooh, New Show Plus. We don't sing karaoke. We just build a karaoke list hypothetically. But still, number one karaoke song for me, and it's not in all machines, but when it is, it's a godsend. It's Nightmare Before Christmas's What's This? It is so fun. It's basically like boring white guy rapping. It's so fast, and it's like an easy tone to hit with my voice. It's the best. But hey, we're not talking about karaoke in this episode. We're talking about The Last of Us Part 1 Remake from Sony coming out this week. We've been playing it. We will share our thoughts. Then, you can judge whether or not these are connected. Then we'll be talking about the remakes that we're actually desperate to see in the game industry. Then we're going to talk about, I just wrote down Game of the Year, but I think that stands for Pac-Man World Re-Pac, the big remake of that PS1 platformer. Then we're talking Tinykin, which is a mix between Pikmin and Chibi Robo, if you want to be specific. Curse to Golf, Ooblets, and then we're going to be joined by a very special guest, a developer, some would say, to talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles new collection, the Cowabunga collection. Let's dive in the weeds on what it's like to bring those old games back to life. And then back half of the show, we have a ton of very wonderful questions submitted by the community over there on Patreon. Janet, how does it feel to do remote content again here after your big week in Minneapolis?
I don't know. I haven't had time to process anything, and I'm already leaving again. So I'm good, I think. I'm as good as I can be.
It is.
And are you
my schedule? Are
you ready to reconsider your review of the Juicy Lucy?
Honestly, I was surprised that like people were quick to just slander Matt's. They think Matt's didn't bring the cheese sauce. I don't know. I can't comment on that. I only know where I was taken. But people are saying that they don't think they can control the temperature of the cheese inside the burger, which is a very bold claim to make. I'm not making it. I'm just relaying what the community has told me based on my review.
That's slanderous. But yeah, if you're confused about what we're talking about, if you missed last week's episode, this is your first episode. Thank you for being here. This last week, we sent Janet from LA to Minneapolis and gave her a big whirlwind tour of all the high highs and the low lows of Minnesota and Minneapolis, including Juicy Lucy, which is kind of our signature burger and all that stuff. But we made a big old travelogue that's up on MinnMax's YouTube channel. You can always check that out. It seems like people really like it. It's a very flattering thing just to spend 4 days just shoving a phone in Janet's face and Sarah Podorski's face and Leo's face. And then the end product is everyone's like, oh, this video is actually really heartwarming and great. So it's nice. You watched it with your family, Janet?
Yeah, I would watch it with everybody, but my brother was at work. Everyone liked it. It was fun. We've watched a bunch of these kind of things because I'm the one recording it. So it was interesting seeing someone else, but then I'm in it. So it's like I actually feel like I got more out of it, even though like you would think there's nothing else to get out of it because I lived it. Right. But just the way it was cut together, or like there's no spoilers for the vlog if you haven't seen it, but there's a moment throughout the vlog, y'all are like, okay, no, she likes this, she doesn't like this, whatever. Right. And there's a moment where like I'm eating something and I'm like, oh yeah, this is really good. And I had no idea that behind me Sarah was like, okay, yeah, we got it. We got it. We got to win, And she was so excited. It was really cute. So yeah, I had fun watching it even though I lived it, and people seem to be enjoying it who didn't live it. So go check it out if you haven't. I'm surprised you cut it down so short too, to just 43 minutes off the 4+ hours, which of course you can check out if you're on the $10 tier on Patreon. The Hanson cut is what people are calling it.
Yeah, everyone's talking about that. Yeah, so it's the actual video is like 38 minutes, and then we have the extended edition, which you can watch, which is basically just all the unedited footage we shot over the weekend. So if you just want to sit back,
2 hours of the mirror maze, you know.
It really feels like it. But yeah, that's nearly 4 hours of the unedited version of the entire travelogue. But it's nice to see people diving in the weeds on that fun stuff. So it's dorky stuff, but I enjoy it. Hey, The Last of Us Part 1. From Naughty Dog and Sony. This thing is out on Friday. Heads up that Sony provided us codes for this sucker so we can check this out on PlayStation 5. I have played a bit. I have obviously played Last of Us before. I'm very curious to jump into this thing. I know we've talked about it a couple times on the podcast, even back when it was first leaked, and Jason Schreier we had on the podcast to kind of talk about the bizarre history of this project. But now it's officially a Naughty Dog remake coming out here this Friday. Who do we start? Jeff, who do we ask first about what they think about the remake for The Last of Us Part 1 now that it's in our hands? Janet, how say you on this final of products?
Wow, what a weird way to ask that question.
I don't know.
Well, spoilers, The Last of Us 1, still a fantastic game. I don't think we necessarily needed to be reminded of that. I think what's unique to this remake is a lot of times a remake specifically where you're doing ground up, often I think in our era, many times like retooling elements of the gameplay, usually because, you know, a lot of games maybe have weird control decisions or like, you know, graphically they're not quite there. I think what's unique to Last of Us in this scenario is like the reason it's not a mind-blowing remake is because time was not only kind to The Last of Us, but also it kept getting these remasters periodically per generation. So we don't really have that same ability of, oh, I feel like it's a fresh way to play it necessarily because the gameplay aged great because it was great from the jump. I played the PS4 remaster as my first time playing it. I played that back in like 2020, I think, like right before Last of Us 2 came out, whatever year that was. And I like totally loved it, thought it was a masterpiece. It remains that today.
Yeah.
I do think, obviously, because it looks nicer, and I think there maybe was some sound retooling and stuff, this is the best way to play Last of Us 1. Also, there's, you know, accessibility stuff where some people maybe genuinely couldn't really play Last of Us 1 the way it was before, and maybe some accessibility things may make that easier. The trophy list is better. You don't have that try-hard, like, difficulty trophy anymore. But ultimately, like, you know, what I told my brother, where he has started this game many times and he's like partway through the PS4 version, I think he can just finish it on PS4. I don't think he needs to like buy this and restart it. But I'm having a good time playing it. You know, again, it's still a great game, but that's sort of my big takeaway is playing this game was a lot of spot the difference in the game. Like I spent my first like hour of this game playing with a YouTube walkthrough pulled up and literally pausing it and being like,
that's
okay.
So good.
What's going on here? Oh, there's like art on Sarah's headboard that wasn't there before. But like, is that moving the needle in what your big takeaway is? I would say no.
Yeah. But
it was like, if you're not like, if you were playing this game maybe every year, you'd be able to feel some of the differences a little bit more vividly. And there are like some fun things with, they made the crafting, like the weapon craft, like upgrade animation the same as like it is in Last of Us 2. And like the general crafting has like some UI updates. It's a nicer version of what we already had, essentially.
Yeah, you know, I played it and was like, yes, this obviously looks better. It wasn't until, of course, like all things on the internet, you really see Digital Foundry's video, where they released a video on Wednesday where they broke it down. And especially, you know, they had the comparison that I wanted to see of like showing this footage versus the PS3 footage, where it's like, okay, clearly this is a huge jump. But then, you know, they broke it down and showing the PS4 version. And then I forgot that they made the PS4 Pro, technically. They made a big overhaul for that as well. So there's been so many little jumps here. But actually seeing those comparisons side to side, that was the most eye-opening thing that I've had. More so than playing the game was like actually watching Digital Foundry's video of like, okay, let's actually look at the faces. Let's look at the lighting here. And they brought up a very good point of how it's real-time cutscenes with this version, whereas before it was kind of baked videos for all of that. And the biggest thing, it's like the most obvious thing, and it's weird that we all kind of overlook it with kind of Naughty Dogs from an earlier generation here, but like cutting to black before and after each cutscene, which would happen, I believe, in old Uncharted, and then for sure in The Last of Us, even the PS4 version of The Last of Us. The fact that this is now seamless and we don't have that really obnoxious cut to black, like that's a big game changer. obviously saying, hey, that's worth $70 is a stretch, you know, like that's the thing that a lot of people are going to get hung up on. But Kyle, what do you think of this thing so far?
Well, it's funny to me that you bring up the cut to black thing because right before Uncharted 4 came out, I interviewed Druckmann, and that was like one of his things that he was excited to talk about in Uncharted 4.
Oh,
like, we're not cutting to black anymore. No more cutting to black. It's all seamless. And you hear that, and you're kind of like, okay, sure. But when it does make a difference, like it does make it feel more seamless. But yeah, I mean, my big takeaway is like, I don't know that it necessarily justifies its existence for like us, right? For like the hardcore who pay attention to video games constantly, but for like the people who missed it or maybe weirdly started with Last of Us Part 2, or maybe they didn't have a PS4 or PS3 and they have a PS5, it's like playing it, I was like, okay, I kind of totally understand why this exists for that group of people. But the other big takeaway for me, which is like what Janet was saying, was like, oh yeah, like this is really great. Like the opening of that game is so good.
It's unbelievable.
And like my chest was like tightening all over again. And like when I'm not gonna spoil anything in case you never played it, but just like the first, 30 minutes of that game are incredible, and it looks great.
Just real quick, like that opening, I've played through it so many times at this point, and it still always gets me. And just like the little lines that main character has for that opening always destroy me because they're so smart and just like quick little interjections where she just goes like, "I saw him this morning." And where she goes like, "We should have helped." And then just real quick, like, "Those people are on fire." It's just like these really quick flavor moments that pop so hard. Or even just, I forgot, and this is revealing my hand that I primarily just played the opening of this game. I didn't get that far. But like just like those smart little details of like seeing the card that she got Joel in the beginning. And it's all like through this lens of explaining like how he's a great dad, but also at fault a lot, where she's like, "I love you, Dad. Happy birthday," even though you're not around that much and you don't like the movies that I like. But it's all just like, oh, that is such, if you just need a character quick way to understand this relationship, like finding that birthday card that's kind of backhanded is just like, God damn, that was so smart.
Bold for the backhanded birthday card, though. Also, in the original game, when she checks the phone, it's 2:15 a.m., but in the new one, it's 1:48 a.m. So I'm like, what's with that change? Like, there's a lot of like little, like fun, funky, like there's no rug in the new one. It's like underneath the kitchen table, and I'm like, or there is a rug where there wasn't one. Like I was deep in the weeds. Like my first 30 minutes with this game, I was like, what's on the refrigerator, But Kyle, you were saying?
That time is kind of like, I have something to say first, Janet. I was going to say the time of the clock, that's like Spielberg with the walkie-talkies in E.T. Like they just needed to change it. It's been driving Druckmann wild.
Oh, you're an E.T. expert now, are you, Ben?
A bit of an E.T. expert.
If we want to go deep, though, really quick on this very not significant thing, which was a lot of my first like 30 minutes with this game, the wallpaper is also changed. They changed it to a picture of Joel and Sarah instead of like the forest. So I do think, while it doesn't, now I see this context totally differently, I do think it's kind of cool, the light little changes they made in those ways to kind of like, almost like they got to know their own product more and like made these little tiny little tweaks, which is cool.
Kyle, will you please? The floor is yours.
The one thing I was going to say
Actually, the other thing is the soundtrack. I forgot how good the soundtrack was.
Okay, now you're just trolling Kyle at this point, right? Like, come on.
All right, go ahead.
Only thing I'll say, to help, I would have been like more excited, I think, if it did give me the PS3 visuals to switch back to.
That would have been interesting.
Like I do really like that feature in these types of games. Yeah. And it does weirdly, it will make you appreciate it more when you can switch back and forth, because the game, remakes are great at making you see a game how you remember it. But like when you play this one, you're like, I'm like 99% sure this is how good it looked when I played it on PlayStation 3. But then it's like I see screenshots online putting stuff side by side, and that's when you're like, oh no, it is more significant than you realize. Yeah, the part that got me in the Digital Foundry video was like seeing Bill's face back to back with even the PS4 Pro version, where it's like, oh my gosh, that is huge. And I think there's going to be, you talk about going back to this game and remembering how great it is. I think there's going to be an audience that is going to be into the HBO show. It's probably going to land pretty well, I'd imagine. It's coming out, is it later this year, I think?
But I am jealous of those people that are watching the show and they're like, oh, this is based on a game. Maybe I'll check out the game. Might be an interesting little academic exercise. Then they jump into the game and they're like just hit in the gut by like, God, this still works. You know, like I think people will be surprised if they're just going back into the game based on the show. So I'm excited for them. And also I think the part that might get overlooked when this remake is being criticized, which I understand the internet has lit itself on fire in both directions here.
For a Naughty Dog game?
Yeah, exactly. But no, I think the big thing is, even though it doesn't have a date as far as I know, but the fact that this version will be coming to PC, like that is going to be huge. I think that's in and of itself a reason for this to exist. Wild. Yes, I know. I can't wait to see it.
When are they putting Joel in Fortnite? That's my question while playing this.
Oh, I could see Naughty Dog being the studio that's like, we're above that. Like, we're not. Wait, hang on. Nathan Drake's in there.
They have Nathan Drake.
Yeah, maybe, but they're like, okay, but Joel is sacred, you know? It seems a little bit different.
Kratos is in there.
Are people who don't know these characters even going to realize they're different characters?
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, any other big thoughts on The Last of Us Part 1 remake? Is everyone just in the camp of like, don't buy it if you don't want it? I guess we're happy it exists, but it's not exactly making me lose my mind on the couch here.
I'm glad it exists. I don't think it's offensive in that way. I think it's great if you haven't played Last of Us 1, like, and you have a PS5, 100% this is the one to play for sure. Yeah. But if you played it on PS4 like in the last 2 or 3 years, like, I don't know if you're going to get a ton out of it.
I will say I didn't finish it. This like the remake version. I've played it before, but I think I'm about 6 hours in, which granted I did spend my first like hour painstakingly like making my own like janky version of Digital Foundry where I'm like, let me just put this on my TV and shout at my family to tell me, oh, there's stickers on her lamp this time and there weren't before, and there's crayons on her table and there weren't before, you know? After doing that for like an hour, I'm around the part of when I'm like at the hotel, like the Hunters area. And I do think like, and Barrett Courtney, I shout out to Barrett Courtney over at Kind of Funny, pointed this out in our Slack channel. And I'm like, I think Barrett nails it here. The stalker introduction in this game, I do think is better. I think the way that they move and are animated does make them feel like a distinct type of infected in the way that the first game did not, to the point of when stalkers showed up in Last of Us 2. I was like, oh, wait, yeah, they were in Last of Us 1. They just kind of felt like runners that made different noise or like you couldn't see as well or something.
Right.
So I do think that there are a few moments that do feel a little bit significantly elevated. Again, I don't think enough to where you need to run out and get it. But I will also just say, like, shout out to the fact that this game is like really freaking good, because it is, especially having played some games that, not every game's a masterpiece, right? And I think replaying this, I'm like, oh my God, they totally, and the sound mixing is better in this version. They nailed the sound design so freaking well. The OST slaps, we've already known that, but even like the subtle way they bring in the music at certain parts, very low. Like there's one of the first like move the plank for Ellie moments in like the abandoned like bougie hotel. Like you're walking up the stairs like alone, like near the coffee maker, and they like very subtly like bring in the OST at the bottom. And it's just like this reminded me, and y'all mentioning the fade in fade out, like I was thinking about how seamless the cutscenes in the gameplay are. So it didn't register with me as a player that was because of a way that they changed it, but it did hit, like I felt it, but I didn't realize that was retooling on their end. So I will say, like, you'll be surprised because you know it's good, but like I think really playing it and really thinking about it and spending time with it, I was like, man, like this game is still very much a masterpiece, and this is what like masterpiece gameplay and game design looks like. So many things are smart. The way your companions kind of tell you what to do. Again, we've all experienced it before, but I think it was sort of a reminder of what game design mastery looks like. Yeah. And it did make me, I think, like Last of Us 1 a little bit more, in the sense that I think of back at Last of Us 1 and I think of how much better Last of Us 2 is. But at the same time, I do feel like it's that Jak 1, Jak 2 thing for me of like, I find the second one to be better, but the first one like is kind of more fun, nostalgic to play. Like I'm enjoying going through. I know it so well. I know when winter's gonna hit and that's gonna be crazy. Like it's there is a fun to the familiarity of it. Again, none of this is to say that like, oh my God, this totally like met my dreams or anything, but that was something that like I didn't necessarily expect to feel. Also, the trophy list is better, so I'm gonna get the platinum on this one.
All right, that sounds good. That's impressive. Yeah, I think I hear you. Like playing this again, it makes me appreciate, I think, what the team pulled off when they released it back in 2013. Right, the fact that like they could call their shot and just say, yeah, we're gonna kind of make the prestige TV but we're going to make it into a game, and it's going to be subtle, and it's going to be nuanced. And the fact that they pulled it off as well as they did is unbelievable. Obviously, they had a gigantic budget and a ridiculously talented team over there at Naughty Dog. But, like, we got to visit Naughty Dog. It was like Tim Turry and Brian Vore and I for the Game Informer cover story for The Last of Us Part 1. And, like, going to that studio, being the first to see, like, this extended gameplay of The Last of Us. And they're like, yeah, we were inspired by No Country for Old Men. We want to make a game like that. And I was like, good luck, everybody. That cannot be done. It's like, okay, you know what? They're nearing that territory with parts of The Last of Us. And it's just amazing to see the rest of the industry kind of still struggling to catch up to even where Naughty Dog was in 2013, Still, a couple things. Happy that the team did this. It gives a lot of talent at Naughty Dog the ability to, learn PS5 tech, get new skills, all that fun stuff. Also, it's still nonsense that they call this a remake built from the ground up. Like that.
I mean, it is literally that. Like, I get what you mean, because it's not.
It's not built from the ground up. That is something else completely entirely. It's just what they're trying to ram down your throats with the messaging, but it's bullshit. Like,
I mean, did they not redo the? I mean, it's by definition built from the ground up.
No, it is by definition not built from the ground up.
Really? Is it not?
No, rebuilt from the ground up is like a Resident Evil 2 type of thing. It's like using no assets, but the fact that they're using all the old animations, they're tweaking it here and there, tweaking camera movement here and there, and they're redoing assets here and there, but it's not rebuilt from the ground up. That has a completely different
Also, is Kyle frozen,
game.
Or is he just really into? Okay,
he's really into this conversation. Yeah. All right, so The Last of Us Part 1. Make your call. Curious to hear feedback from people who are playing it for the first time, all that good stuff. But you know what? Every time people talk about The Last of Us Part 1, and especially when it was announced, it's like, why are they doing this? There's so many other games that we want to be remade that are in desperate need of a remake. And so we came up with a couple of picks from each of us about games that deserve a remake at this point. Not to bash Last of Us Part 1, you can make your own call on that, but things that were in more desperate need of a remake, which, I don't know, Jeff, how do you think about this process? I'm trying to think of what needs a remake. What are the big key pillars for needing the full overhaul here?
This one was hard for me because I think maybe it's because I missed the PS1, PS2 era. I wasn't playing those PlayStation games, and that seems like the prime candidates for games that kind of want this. But I guess for me, I took it as I thought of it through the lens of Final Fantasy VII Remake of these were interesting games. They probably weren't as good as they could have been because of the time that they were released. And I want the developer to go back and revisit this idea and just blow the heck out of it and make, something super exciting.
Yeah, it is. For me, it's a big thing of the tech holding back the ambition of the game. And if you remade it, it would overhaul how we perceive this, how we play this, how we experience it. There needs to be some limiting factor. Whereas, yeah, they pushed the PS3 to its limits with The Last of Us, but I don't feel like it was fully constrained, and it feels like you can breathe a sigh of relief playing the new version of it or anything, All right, so let's share a couple of our picks. Jeff, give me one. Does everybody have where was everybody at? You got 3 or so? That rough idea?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're thereabouts.
There's about. Jeff, what are you at? Give us a good game you want to be remade.
Okay. I will start with Mercenaries.
Interesting.
Mine are all weird, and I'll say that. And it's hard for me to divorce just the idea of I want a new Mercenaries game. In nowadays, as opposed to, this, if they did do a remake of Mercenaries, I absolutely don't want the faithful, we updated just the graphics, but you can switch back and forth between the game because they're so close, in programming.
Right, you just want full destruction. This is what, Pandemic's open world game where it's just complete chaos out there?
Yeah, It also had a lot of interesting systems for the time. I can't remember, there were 5 different factions or something, and they were all warring against each other, and you could work for whichever ones that you wanted, and that would affect your relationships with the other ones. And then you had, the whole, the deck of 52, targets to assassinate, and all of these kind of interesting mechanisms, which worked well at the time, probably not as good as I remember them working. But it's just kind of, and maybe it's because Saints Row was so fresh in my mind, but it just feels like there were some really ambitious ideas back then of things that you could do with systems for an open world game that just have kind of fallen by the wayside. Like you could also get into vehicles of a certain faction, and that would allow you to drive behind enemy lines because you were they couldn't tell it was you at the time, you know, unless like generals found you and then they could see through it, and you know, kind of like Hitman-esque mechanisms, but in a much larger, more insane open world at the time.
Yeah, I love it. For me, I think the game that is in most dire need of a remake, it's not so much a remake as much as it's like a liberation from the controls, is Kid Icarus Uprising. I wrote Kid Rising Uprising. That's not the name of that game.
Okay.
It's close enough.
Yeah, Kid Icarus Uprising on the 3DS. Ambitious game. Sakurai is hot as hell with that YouTube channel, so they can capitalize on some of that fame by remaking this game that was just imprisoned by those controls, where they had to release the separate stand to put the 3DS on so you can hope to maybe control this thing kind of like a third-person shooter, and actually just remaking that, getting it up and running on the Switch. I think that everybody would realize like, oh, that game rules, and the writing is funny, and it's got a lot of really fun systems, and like, you know, the push and pull of upping the difficulty and all that stuff. Like, so many great ideas are there, but if you want to go back to it, your hands are literally going to be in pain after a while, which is not what you want from this thing. And I think
they can throw Star Fox Zero sort of in that pile too, just like the bad old Controls remake, and just put those two games on one Switch cart.
I totally agree. Yeah, I think that one's a prime candidate as well. Yeah, Janet, what do you got for a game that you think needs to be remade?
I mean, it's never going to be. Well, first of all, I also want to say that the way we do remakes is very much, you know, there's that conversation of like, oh, why Last of Us 1? Like, isn't it? Oh, the remakes are always a game that's already good. Like, it's never, I feel like the games that truly need to be remade are never going to get remade because no one's going to buy them because they weren't good games, but they could, you know, like, so on that note, I want to say, you know, shout out to Recore. I would love if they remade Recore because it had great ideas and it would just need another pass. That's never going to happen because that's not how we approach remakes. So to shout out one that's like critically acclaimed but could use a repolish, I would say Super Mario 64, which I know got a remake on the DS, but that remake was not good. Like, I didn't enjoy. I played it.
There's a lot of defenders out there of that thing.
You told me, are they on this show?
Yes.
Speak
hello,
now.
my name is Kyle, and
oh my God, you like putting on
64.
You liked putting on those hats as the different characters. I did not like that.
Putting on hats? What are you talking about?
Yeah, you had to, when you started the game, you played, I forgot what character you played as, but you'd have to wear a hat to become Yoshi. Like, as like a nod. It's a nod to the Easter egg.
But you just switch characters. You're not putting on hats, are you?
Yeah, you have to put on the hat to become them, I think.
Is that right?
Maybe I misremember.
That's the shtick of that game. That's what I didn't like about it.
I actually love that because I like that game because it was like, it had the core Mario 64 game, but it also had extra stuff, and you could approach it in a new way. Like, Yoshi and Wario and Luigi all played differently, so you got to play in this very familiar playground with new controls. I like that game a lot.
No, I'm with you there, Janet.
You did have to put the hats on.
You got
okay. Yeah, I didn't like being those different characters. Like, the only thing I liked about that version was that it was another way I could play one of my favorite games, and that I did like the mini games that they had kind of ancillary to that. Those were super fun.
But yeah, I think like seeing Mario Odyssey and like seeing the castle in that game was like, oh my God, imagine if they gave this the full
Womp's
treatment.
Fortress and Mario.
I feel like collectively the internet was in the camp of like, it seems like we're primed and ready for a full remake of 64. What do you got, Nintendo? And then they said, yeah, we're just going to charge you money and put 64 on the Switch in this 3D All-Stars collection, please.
And you got to buy it fast or you won't be able to buy it.
Right, exactly. This is the biggest FU. But no, I think that's a great one. I think that is, you're right, that is absolute prime candidate for that type of thing. Kyle, what do you got, man?
To stay on Janet's theme of like a game that was too ambitious and kind of fell on its face, that I actually think had cool ideas that I would like to see re-examined, the 2007 Alone in the Dark was this like kind of junky, weird, often stupid game that had like really weird, interesting ideas. Like, it's basically an open world game that takes place in Central Park in New York.
Oh, weird. Really?
And
that's fun.
Yeah, and like it had interesting ideas about like how to set things on fire, and it had this whole idea of like your inventory was like your jacket, so you would like look down into your jacket. And it didn't work. It like functionally didn't work very well, especially near the end. And the story was very stupid. But the other cool idea is it like presented itself as like a DVD basically, in the sense that like you could just skip to any chapter from the start. Like if you wanted,
really,
like you could play the last level or the last 2 hours of the game if you wanted, which I just always thought that was an interesting idea of like maybe it's a little weird to have it as like the first option. You can just go to any part of the game you want, but I've always like. It's like, why not approach it that way and let you sort of jump around the game? I mean, obviously games do that, after you beat them and they have chapter select and stuff. But a game full of interesting ideas that didn't quite work, that would be interesting to see re-examined.
Yeah, and you don't have any strong thoughts on them remaking the original Alone in the Dark, which THQ Nordic just announced?
I don't have any affection for that original Alone in the Dark. I guess as a curiosity of like seeing the roots of Resident Evil, I want to check it out. I think it's the right thing to do is to remake that original game. But it's not one that I was like, can't wait to finally see what Alone in the Dark was like.
Right. All right, let's rapid fire through these bad boys. Jeff, what else we got? Give us the game that needs to be remade.
Silent Hill 2.
Ooh, that's a good one.
But good.
But good. Okay, not that like that old remaster.
Because they came out, I guess, as I was Googling these, they came out with a Silent Hill HD collection last gen, I guess, which I completely missed. And it was like, well, okay, I guess that refutes my theory that I super want a remake of this game that I can play on modern consoles. But yes, through the lens of Final Fantasy VII, then I want them to really blow it out and put their heart and soul into it.
Give it a silly
but it's
budget.
Konami, so I mean,
who knows? Speaking of Konami, this has been bandied about. I know it's a weird one because technically they didn't sell like juggernauts, and there's better options strategically if you want to be a boring salesperson about it. But you don't got Kojima, but you have the roadmap right there. Remake Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake for the MSX. Let's tell some of those old stories.
I had that on my list too.
Yeah, I want to see, like, I guess Fox Engine, if Konami's still using that in any capacity. But I want to see Solid Snake using an aerosol can and a lighter and burning Big Boss alive is like the big final battle for that thing. Like there's so much great potential there, and you have the skeleton of what the story would be, Kojima sanctioned, and especially if you combine those two games together, I think it'd be a really cool, probably shorter experience, but like really just give us those same environments but in a 3D world. Like I think that'd be really fun just for a weird little anomaly.
I'd love that. Yeah.
It'd be sweet. Janet, what do you got?
You know what I'd want? Even though it's been done a million times, I want RE1 remake the remake of the remake.
I know.
Because I know that's already been touched up a lot. But I will say, like, and again, that goes back to how it was done and how like well it inherently aged. Because like with Last of Us, same deal, right? It's been done so many times, and that's part of why this one doesn't hit. But Resident Evil was done so long ago, and like trying to go back to that GameCube version, it's just so tanky and rough. And if you just like, I want that totally retooled. Mm-hmm. And I think that could happen because and I think Resident Evil is one of my favorite examples of, I think, a good use of a remake, because I think they do such a good job capturing the feel that those players initially had and converting it to a modern era in a way that's even more one-to-one than I think Final Fantasy. Because Final Fantasy also is doing some like tweaks of the genre with its remake that people, debate whether or not they like that more or less.
Right,
While Resident Evil is very much like the feeling of fear, but now it's modernized and you can actually feel it and play it and enjoy it in the modern day. So I guess I'd go with RE1.
Yeah. Kyle, what do you got?
You want me? I had a few. You want me to just go through them real quick? You don't have to dive deep into them.
Absolutely.
I had Metal Gear Solid. I just want Twin Snakes on Switch. Like I would be happy with that.
That'd be so weird. But yeah.
I want Mega Man X2 because they did Maverick Hunter on PSP, and I love that game. And I always hoped that they would just jump over to the next one. They never did. I hope they will someday. Star Wars Shadows of the Empire for the N64 is like my favorite Star Wars game.
Ooh,
and I can still go back to it and have a good time with it, but I understand why, people will go back to it and not and really have a hard time with it. I mastered that game as a kid, so I know it too well. I'm too close to it.
Dude, honestly, I like that as an idea, and I feel like there's so much damn nostalgia over that, and people over there at Disney, they seem pretty smart about how to mine Star Wars nostalgia. Like, if they made a remake of Shadows of the Empire, do you think they'd make it level-based like that? Or would they try and be like, okay, now we're going from Hoth to, I don't know, was it the train? I'm trying to think of like, would they have to like fill in the gaps and try and make like a seamless third person adventure going from each level to each level? They probably would, right?
I mean, you're planet hopping pretty much every level, so it wouldn't be that weird to just have like a cutscene between levels.
Right. And they would try and make it a little more seamless and less just now loading level 2 type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, and there is story that happens between the levels. There's like little cutscenes, quote unquote. They even made CGI cutscenes for the PC version of it.
Yeah. I like that. I could see them doing that, honestly, within the next 10 years. I would bet that we get something like that.
The question is like the canon of it. Like Dash Rendar's ship does appear in Return of the Jedi, like the remasters or whatever you call them. And if they're considering those remasters still canon in Star Wars, I guess Dash Rendar still exists. So let's go for it.
He lives.
Let's appeal it to the Supreme Court of the Star Wars Tribunal.
Chancellor, here's one to throw out there. It's just Legend of Dragoon. Just let's remake Legend of the Dragoon. Let's see. I would love to see Sony, I don't know, have a first studio make a JRPG like this. You know, obviously you could argue that Guerrilla, they're RPG developers at this point, but I would just be curious to see and just really test it once and for all. How many fans are there of Legend of Dragoon? Because everyone's screaming about it. Let's put it on the shelves, see who picks it up. Let's go all out. You got more though, Kyle?
I would like Ico to get the Shadow of the Colossus treatment.
Ooh, interesting.
Just straight, not too fancy a remake there.
Yeah.
And Zelda 2. I would like Zelda 2, Link's Awakening Switch style, I think would be, man, well, I don't know, maybe not, because that toy sort of aesthetic really works for Link's Awakening because it's very dreamlike, but I would like to a Zelda 2 that's more playable and looks more modern.
I think, making it still side-scroller, but then making it more of an action RPG, which I guess Zelda 2 is going for. But, help me out. I remember Ben Reeves would always bring it up on the Game Informer Show podcast. I don't remember the specifics, but like when we were doing the Breath of the Wild cover, we were talking to Anuma and Miyamoto, and somehow the idea came up of like, and Miyamoto even said something along the lines of like, oh, it would be fun to like give Zelda 2 the Donkey Kong Country Returns treatment. Is that how
think what he was
it?
saying is like take Zelda 2's sort of format and structure and apply Donkey Kong to it in a weird way. Like take the sort of the core of Zelda 2.
What a weird sentence.
I know.
I know. There could be a lost in translation situation there, right? But that's kind of what it seemed like he was saying, was more like, we had this great sort of setup for a game, but like it would be cool to apply other Nintendo franchises to it. I was like, I'll play whatever you want to make, dude. Like,
but I do feel like there is an audience. Like if you were to take some of the, oh God forbid, but if you made a Zelda 2 remake and made it more of like a Soulsborne, I feel like there is a weird overlap in that community that would really get into that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right, we have plenty more remakes to get to in community questions. A lot of people submitted some great suggestions, but let's get to the almighty, the one and only remake that we need here, Pac-Man World Re-Pac. If you recall, when we had our 6-shooter game duel challenge episode a while ago, you all laughed at me for choosing Pac-Man World Re-Pac as one of the games I wanted to play.
You shot all 6 of your shots.
I shot everything I had.
The clip. It was
I need the pack. And now we've got it, and now that it's taken the world by storm, who's laughing now, huh? Who's laughing? Did we all play?
I'm still like having a good hearty chuckle here.
Did we all play Pac-Man World Re-Pac?
Yes.
Yes. I love it. I played about the first hour. This is a remake of the PS1 game, which I was always curious about, and I always looked at that box art and I was like, maybe at some point I get into it. Look, this is not a stunner of a game. But Janet, I see your expression, and just let me get it in there. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with this stupid, simple 3D platformer in the remake. And also, this is...
I want to go last.
built from the ground up for this remake of this thing. But it kind of feels like that Klonoa of like, look, if you want a nice, simple platformer with some fun ideas in here.
To compare it to Klonoa, I feel like.
It's no Klonoa, but ballpark for Bandai Namco of just like, you know what? I'm having some good gaming pleasures out of this sucker. You can turn into Metal Pac-Man, just like Metal Mario from 64. You can do a little spin dash, just like Sonic. There's an evil guy called Talkman. It's got everything you need. Okay, so that's my take is, sure, this is exactly what I was hoping it would be $30 might be a stretch, but I'm
so
content.
sorry. I'm gonna mute myself. Y'all go.
Okay, thank you.
I'll do my take next, which is that I didn't realize it was a remake of a game. And that
really?
explains so much, because I was like, why the hell are they making this, and who is this for, and who thought this was a good idea?
The answer was morons in the 90s, I believe.
Yeah, but now, it all makes sense. You nailed it. You covered everything. They put the Sonic spin in there. You got the Mario butt stomp. It was, I rage quitted it, and I was just mystified as to why it was made and why you were making us play it. But now it makes a little more sense. So I feel better, because the whole time I was playing it, I was like, I had to remind myself, human beings made this game, and all human beings deserve love and respect. And
truly the mark of a rough game, when you have to start going into digging into your morality before you start to give your dig.
Yeah, but now it makes sense. Okay, they were remaking a really old, bad 3D Pac-Man game that probably shouldn't have been made back then. But hey, that's way in the past. Who can judge anyone from 20 years ago?
Am I drinking the Pac Kool-Aid?
They brought their sins into the modern era. You could have let that.
That's true.
This is a fine experience.
Well, yeah. But Janet, because you said you wanted to go last, I will say, I think if Hanson's here and Jeffham's here and Janet, I don't know where we'll see where Janet
Bowels
is.
of
I have
hell,
my
no
suspicions. Doubt. I'm between Jeffham and you, Hanson.
Okay, thank you.
It had a performance mode setting on Switch, which I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, please. Platformer? Absolutely. And I thought it played pretty well. I thought Pac-Man moves pretty well.
He has a ledge
fun to
grab.
turn into giant Pac-Man and eat the bad guys. The layout of the buttons was strange. I'm trying to the Y button isn't used, or at least not to the point that I found. But then the X button is your dash. It seems like that should be closer to the jump button, but whatever.
Nobody's perfect.
So it feels pretty good. It's like a locked camera, old school kind of platformer.
I think it's amazing to have a platformer from this era, and the camera is not atrocious, because it's still pretty faithful to that original, right?
Yeah. Well, it's just a locked. It's just you don't have any control, right? It's the God of War approach,
right? Right.
So, all right, Janet, please.
All right, Tinykin is also a game that's available now. Sorry, Janet, what do you think of this thing?
So I know, it's funny, because I actually only spent 30 minutes. I wanted to spend an hour on this. I couldn't bring myself to do the hour. I was like, nah, we don't need to do all that. But yeah, this was a game that, code floated around through Slack, and I was like, surely no one needs this, so I'm going to take this, because Ben picked it. And, to clarify, when Ben picked it, and we were like, what are you talking about? This is a silly pick. 10 seconds later, Ben's like, I shouldn't have picked this. So
check the tape. I think I was very comfortable with my decisions, Janet.
So, was this... It's almost like the opposite of Last of Us, right? We already kind of knew this game was bad. Do we even need to play it to know that? Not really, but I did. It's not a good game. It's really weird. Unsurprisingly, a 3D Pac-Man is going to inherently be weird, because Pac-Man's an arcade game. That said, not gonna lie, that opening cutscene, absolutely wild. Look it up on YouTube if you've never seen it.
The ghost makes such ungodly sounds, as they're stealing the Pac mom.
It's a sea of Pac people, but none of them are Pac-Man. And then the ghosts are talking. There. And I was like, oh, that's Miss Pac-Man. Turns out that's Pac-Mom. Didn't know there was a Pac-Mom. They got the robot Pac-Man. Mm-hmm. They stole all the Pac-Man, and they're like, Pac-Man's gonna be this event, and then Pac-Man pulls up, and then they're like, oh snap, real Pac-Man's there. I thought you got real Pac-Man. This is all within 3 minutes of cutscene. So
storytelling.
Then we go into it, and it's it's literal 3D Pac-Man. You're eating the pellets. You can eat the the main one that makes you get your ability. You get giant. You can tear through things. I'm it's kind of weird. All right. And then it goes into just regular 2D platforming, where you have you got your butt stump. You can be metal Pac-Man. Yeah, it's very much platformers used to be really popular, and then with that came a lot of not good platformers inherently. Pac-Man. Pre-packed, whatever it used to be called, was one of those. It was an instant close delete for me. Not gonna lie, it was rough having this against The Last of Us. I kind of felt bad for Pac-Man World 3 because I was hitting up Last of Us, I was digging in. Then I'm like, okay, I gotta do an hour of Tinykin. Dug into that. No spoilers on that. We're gonna talk about that in a second. Then I dug into Pac-Man, and I'm like, I think I'm just going to go back and play more of The Last of Us. But yeah, it was an instant delete for me. But I will say, as a platformer stan, I could see myself toxically re-downloading and playing through it.
Yes.
Out of like the toxic. Because if you're a platformer stan, you know there's not a lot of platformers out there to begin with. So you're willing to play a lot of stuff that isn't good because you're like, I just want to jump. That's how I am, at least with it. So yeah, but this is not a good game. I think the reviews are actually too high on this game. The reviews aren't even that high.
They were not kind.
It's a bad game. You don't need to play it. It's not good.
But to Janet's point though, after I played it for like an hour and decided to rage quit it, I was so mad. I was like, I just want to go back and play more Saints Row. And I played more Saints Row, and I actually had a little more fun
Saints
with it.
Row is
because
1,000% a better game than Pac-Man World Re-Pac. It's not even close.
So there you
also,
go.
I want to negatively shout out the OST in this game. It is awful.
Hang on. You're talking about like a steel drums version of the Pac-Man theme isn't doing it for you?
Yeah, it's variations on Pac-Man music.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
It was so funny because like I was, again, it was like Last of Us, Tinykin, and this were like my three that I was hitting up last night.
Yeah.
And Tinykin, spoilers for Tinykin, I think the OST is like really good in that game. And then to play this, I'm like, oh, this is what a bad OST is like, because it does that thing where like all video game music is inherently going to be some degree of like, there's the monotony because you're listening to it for hours at a single level, depending on the structure of the game. But the beauty of a good OST is that it fades in a good way where you don't feel like you're listening to it. This was like so blaring. I was like instantly turning it off. Instantly had to go into the settings. I was like, I can't do this.
And
it is so bad.
Some of us think that this is Tommy Tallarico's finest work. Up there with the Intellivision Amico. I think
Is it Tallarico joint?
Oh, it's a Tallarico
Pac-Man
joint.
OST is fine, but this interpretation is so it's grating.
Yeah, look,
it's grating to hear.
Hey, look, everybody, it's Pac-Man World Re-Pac. You know what you're getting in for. I enjoyed it more than I expected. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, the fact that 63 Metascore, people aren't harsh enough on Pac-Man World Re-Pac. I'm giving that like a 4 out of 10 at best.
No, this world is full of kind
best.
souls.
There's no world that's not higher than that. No.
People understand art when they see it. Hey, there's this game that came out. It is on, I believe, everything, including its Game Pass for PC, but it's also on Switch. It's called Tinykin. One word, Tinykin. Easy pitch for this sucker, as we mentioned before. This is Chibi Robo, in the sense that you're a small person in a big world, Jeff Cork's specialty. You're going around a house, exploring a house, combined with Pikmin, because you're going around a house, grabbing these tiny little creatures and using them to solve puzzles, move objects from here and there, battle things, change the environment. Tinykin is also one that I picked for that 6-shooter duel. I was really looking forward to this. Started playing it only like an hour in. Is it just me or does this game rule?
It's awesome.
I absolutely love it, and I did not expect that
really
at all. Like I think it was even like, the way it works here, we get some codes, you offer them up, and I think you like had one left over, and I was like, yeah, I guess I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was up till 2 a.m. playing this game.
Wow.
It totally caught me off guard. Like, and I realized, I think the little tiny thing that like is clicking with me so well is like, oh yeah, I do like Pikmin. But I've never like loved Pikmin because that time sensitive nature of the game is consistently frustrating. It does not make I don't enjoy that part of the game, right? I don't like that you're always on a timer anytime you leave the ship. And this is like, okay, well, we're going to remove that entirely, and it's just going to be kind of like exploring and puzzle solving with your Pikmin crew with you. And it looks cool. Like it really, I seriously, like I've been in a little bit of a rut lately where like I've been playing and enjoying a lot of things, but not really intending to finish anything. Where it was like, oh my God, it's 2 a.m. Like this is the most fun I've had in a game in probably like a month. I'm like head over heels for it.
I love that. Yeah, you mentioned that it looks cool. The art is very cool. It has a kind of a, I don't know, Saturday morning cartoon type of vibe with the cutscenes, but then it's a little bit Paper Mario-esque where the characters are kind of 2D in a 3D world, except they're not, even if you look at them, like there's still kind of like 3D animation on these 2D characters. It's really got a unique vibe, but also it's just like rock solid to play from what I've experienced so far playing on Steam, or just, it feels so good. And like, as you go, you unlock more and more abilities, and you get like a soap bar that you can like slide on, and genuinely
real quick, just to pause you right there, because Janet will be on board with me for that too. That's something that I love in games in general, that Jak 2 taught me to love, is like just something that you can pull out to make you go faster at any time.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah, it's so good. But like the part where it's just like really clicking in is you can unlock ability to kind of stack your Tinykin into a stack. So you're making like these makeshift ladders and pillars, just shooting it up, climbing to the top of those, gliding off those, like sliding on this rope with your soap bar, jumping off that. Just like the maneuverability in a Pikmin style game feels so great. And just like quality of life stuff, like you just throw your Tinykin on whatever the problem is and it'll figure out what color, what type of Tinykin you need to solve that problem and take care of it. You're not like trying to manage like, okay, purple ones you go over here, red ones, but then white ones over here. It's just throw it, it'll take care of it. But Janet, you're digging it too?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's one of those games where, like, you know, I guess I'll start with like the more negatives and then go into the many positives. It's, you know, not necessarily reinventing the wheel or like moving anything forward in a big way. That said, it'd be in that 8 out of 10 range. Like, I think it's a great game from the time I've spent with it. But the amount of, so that's my critical like review thought. But the amount of love I have for that is so much higher, much like Kyle said, where it's just a game where you're like, oh man, games can be so fun and enjoyable and natural feeling. I think that'd be the number one feeling that I get from this game is like a natural, fun flow state. In that, you know, to its credit, you know, I know I mentioned that it's not reinventing the wheel, but I do think it has a lot of smart design choices, like you mentioned, Hanson, with making it easy to accomplish things. I think my favorite aspect of this game, outside of the aesthetics, I'm also very pro small person in big world, but the big world's a normal world, but it's made foreign due to your size.
Right.
I love that in games. Aside from that, I love that it has just such a natural flow to the exploration, because it does that great thing of there are like little side quests from the characters that'll be like, oh, we're missing the button for the VCR, but you don't need to like engage with that to accomplish it. Like, I saw that button, I'm like, I'm sure someone needs this, and I kind of waited to like naturally solve it. It's a game that just, and you
could also just, Janet, real quick, you can also just throw a Tinykin is out there. You can just throw one at that button and they'll just carry it around for you until you're ready to use it. Like, I just have them pick up all kinds of stuff, and then it's like, oh, that's where I need that.
And I think that's so cool too, that it's so clearly telegraphed, I think, in the coloring of the objects, where they like highlight what you can interact with in terms of pushing something or carrying something. And there's like just a lot of really smart choices in the sound design of this game. The sound design is fantastic, very playful, over the top, that lends itself to the cartoon aesthetic, and just on a fun, cute level. And you can just tell that like a lot of detail went into this game. Like, they really thought through all this stuff. Like, when you move stuff with your Tinykin, they all go, yay! Like, in a really adorable, playful way. Like, it is honestly, it's just fire. Like, I think everyone should play it. If you like, I would say if you just like exploring worlds and light puzzle solving, that's fairly easy. Like, this is like, I feel like it's a must play for everybody. I'm loving it. I'm playing on Switch and the performance is great.
Oh, really? I was curious about that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
People watching the stream were like, is this a collectathon? And I'm curious to see how it stacks up there, because there's like, you got to collect 1,000. Well, that seems like an Assassin's Creed or something, but like I was collecting a lot of stuff, because you're getting all the little nectar to make the beer or whatever the hell to unlock new abilities. But it's like you're collecting things, but also it's just really fun to collect these things at this point, because like, oh, it's fun to collect more Tinykin around the world and then add to your crew. So it feels like you are doing a lot of collecting, but so far at least it hasn't been like a Banjo-Kazooie style nightmare of just nothing but numbers that you need to drive up. I don't know. But yeah, there's a free demo available for, I think, most platforms if you want to check out. Tinykin is the name of this thing.
Also, for Game Pass, to clarify, it is on both console and PC.
Oh, nice. Awesome. There we go.
Yeah, totally surprised me. I mean, I was positive going into it. I was like, yeah, this looks cool, but like really enjoying it a lot.
Yeah, like the hour I spent with it flew by. Like, I like had no notion of time or space. Like, I can't wait to finish this. It's so freaking good.
Yeah.
And actually, it seems weird to say I like it more than Pikmin, but like I like Pikmin, but I am not a Pikmin stan. Like, there are people that love that game to an extreme degree, and I never fully got the deep intense love of it, even though I enjoyed my time with it.
Right.
I'm kind of liking this more, but anyway, I freaking love this game.
Yeah, it seems sweet. And so, yeah, shout out to Tiny Builds, the publisher, and then Splash Team is the name of the developer. They made Splasher, I think, is their last game from like 2017, but it's like really out of nowhere for how solid these things put together. So
you can tell they named the thing because they had to name it then. They're like, what are we making, Splash or Splash Team?
Yep.
I don't know.
Do it. Freaking do it. Jeffem, will you keep it down?
Sorry.
Real quick, because we have a guest in the wings here, but you've been playing Curse to Golf, which we talked a little bit about last week, but it's the the 2D side-scroller golf game, the Dark Souls of golf, as IGN proudly put it.
This was one of the bullets that I shot at it during that most anticipated list.
Yeah.
And it's lived up to what I wanted from it, which is a 2D golf game that's also a roguelike.
Yeah.
I love whenever a roguelike can do a really weird twist on some kind of genre other than just kind of hack and slash. And it definitely delivers on that, with the one caveat that I think, in terms of the overall structure of roguelikes, it is a much more traditional one in terms of like, this is like a Slay the Spire kind of, you're going to beat your head against this problem and lose, a dozen or 24 times before you finally put together the one run that is going to finally break you through it.
Right.
But it's 2D golf, and I love 2D golf, and it is an insane. I was not expecting the craziness of the levels, that like when you zoom out on any given level, it looks more like some kind of insane Mega Man level than it does a golf. Like you're going through transporters and all kinds of different, teleportation and spike traps and all kinds of different things. But you can actually figure it out. You have these power-up cards that kind of give you one-time use abilities, and it kind of really relies heavily on that the more that you go. And once you kind of figure those out, it's kind of like you're working to keep your head above water the entire time, and it feels balanced enough that you can do that.
Yeah,
I would say I'm playing on Switch, and right now I am stuck on the third boss battle, because every time the boss takes its second swing, the game crashes. And
really?
I'm waiting for a patch, and it's like the 15th hole out of 18, and so I'm like, I'm not abandoning this run because it could happen the next time, as far as I know. So I'm just kind of been in a holding pattern, waiting. I don't know if like PC version's probably better, but if they can get that fixed, then I'm a happy camper with this one.
Real happy.
I also want to add very quickly that game's soundtrack will be on my end of the year.
Oh, really?
Music of the year soundtrack. So good. Fantastic soundtrack.
Ah, nice. Curse to Golf is the name of that thing. Also, Ooblets, Jeff, you've been playing that, which, God, didn't you say you were a backer, Janet, way back in the day?
Oh, no, I wasn't a backer, but I have been following it forever.
Yeah.
And I did buy it at one point on Xbox. So I've been in it. I've been in it for a while. Yeah.
So this thing's finally 1.0. Jeff, you've been playing on Switch. This was the game that Double Fine was originally publishing. What is this again? I started it, I think, but I don't even remember what the hell I was doing years ago.
I was trying to remember if we had done it on like a goatee hunt way back in the day, maybe,
I wonder.
Or if that was Temtem. I couldn't remember which one, but it's kind of a cutesy, very positive Pokemon style, Pokemon Harvest Moon kind of mashup. Like town simulator, meet a bunch of characters, make lots of friends, and collect these Pokemon that you grow from seeds. But it's just overwhelmingly just a positive, happy kind of Animal Crossing vibe to it.
Yeah.
To the point where when you instead of fighting your Pokemon, they just have, or your Ooblets, they just kind of have dance-offs, and instead of wearing the other person down, it's a race to 25 points, which is always like, it's a twist that you sometimes see in tabletop games too, where it's like, instead of attacking each other, we're just trying to get to a static goal, and that just feels so much happier. And then once you do beat the opponent, you can go up, and they always like fart out a seed for you to plant, but then you just kind of pat them on the head and say, hey, you did a really good job. Good for you.
Yeah, good memory, by the way.
It's just, very positive vibes all around.
It looks like July 22nd, 2020, you and Leo and I did a great goatee hunt for Ooblets, which apparently I'm playing, and I have very little memory of this. But do you think you're going to stick with Ooblets?
Yeah, I think I'll keep on playing it, and I'm sure at some point my wife will take over and just like completely annihilate the game.
Oh, that's nice.
Because it falls into that farming vibe that she likes so much. So.
Yeah. That's sweet. Ooblets, everybody. Janet, thank you for being here. You've been a real champion over the last week. My God.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Do you want to clap out? And before you do you want to make sure that you have a good time at PAX?
Sure. How do I do that part? Do I just will it into...
That's time travel.
Just good thoughts?
Good thoughts. Yeah. I mean, you're doing a freaking panel at PAX.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I should probably tell people that.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a panel at PAX West, which is happening on September 4th, Sunday, September 4th at 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. PT in Horse Theater. Shout out to Sarah. In Horse Theater at the Grand Hyatt Level 1. It's called Indiscovery. It's going to be me, Jenny Wyndham, Mary Kish, Cam Hawkins, all talking about upcoming indie games that you should be excited for, with a light focus on ideally having most of our picks be from the show floor as well. So they're games that you either maybe just played or could play while you're there, touching on things like how we find new indies to be excited about, things like that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Check it out. It's on my pinned tweet on Twitter. It will also be streamed on Twitch if you cannot be there live. So yeah, and if you're going to PAX and you see me, say hi. That's it. But yeah, I'm very excited to go. I got appointments lined up. Also, the hell of scheduling your own appointments. I was like, normally someone would be like, here's what you're doing. And I'm like, cool. And that's it. I was like, I miss having someone do that because doing it myself was less exciting. But I got some appointments and I'm very excited to play a bunch of games. So,
awesome. Yeah. All right. Curious to hear your report. All right. You want to clap out there, Janet? Thank you for being here. Chris Kohler, welcome to the show, sir.
Yes, thank you for having me.
It's an honor to have you. People probably maybe know you. You've been everywhere in the games industry.
Oh gosh, yeah, true. Well, you stay in it long enough, you end up pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, it is. You are one of those people that's just like, well, Chris Kohler, that's just a go-to name in the game industry. But I was really trying to unpack like why. Like I heard you on the Video Game History,
why on earth?
No, the Video Game History Hour podcast you're on not too long ago, talking about like Final Fantasy V, right? Was that your episode?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, me and Final Fantasy V go back a long ways because that was the first back in 1995. I imported a copy of Final Fantasy V because I had Final Fantasy 2 and 3 on the Super Nintendo. It was like, what is this missing Final Fantasy that I keep hearing about? So I did that, and then I ended up, many years later in 2017, writing a book for Boss Fight Books about the experience of like importing, like back in the day, like in the mid 90s, basically, like there's practically no emulators, so you had to like, import a game, and now I don't know Japanese. How am I going to get through it? That sort of a thing. And so that's why I was there talking about Final Fantasy V. But yeah, that kind of like started my career also because I ended up writing about Final Fantasy V for a very short-lived magazine that was called Game On USA, and it was all about Japanese video games like in America, and then from there just sort of spiraled. Yeah,
spiraled where you freelanced all over the place, and then you were at Wired for how long?
I was at Wired for a long time. I did my first freelancing for Wired in like 2002. It was a review of Wind Waker on the GameCube, and then that by 2005 that became the Wired was expanding its website. It was adding these things called blogs to the website. It was it was when like Kotaku and Joystick were starting up, and it was this idea like, oh, let's get a ton more content onto the website. And I was like, great, I'll edit the video game section. And I sort of pitched like, this is what I would do with video games on Wired.com, and got essentially hired as a contractor to do that in 2005, and was there until running Game Life, which was the video game section of Wired, until 2016. Yeah.
How do you feel like Wired's doing now for its video game coverage? Yeah. Are they trying to ramp up? I feel like they're always in a state of trying to ramp up or trying to ramp down. What's going on?
Well, they shut it all down, and then they're like, oops, they're like, oh, we don't want to do video games. And then a couple of years later, they're like, oh, whoops, we actually do, video games are actually a, very vital area of coverage for us. So they started with Wired Games again, and it's not as robust a section as it was, just in terms of like number of articles, but they're approaching it in a sort of a seems like they're approaching it more of in a sort of a service journalism type way, like not only like what hardware should you buy, things like that, but also just trying to it seems like they're always trying to carve out a different area of coverage that other people aren't doing, and do it in a way that reflects the Wired of right now. I haven't paid too close attention to it, unfortunately.
Sure, yeah. Aaron T, watching us live at the Backstage Pass tier, they say, I absolutely loved Chris's Complete in Box series at Kotaku when you're at Kotaku for all those years. So congratulations.
That was super fun. That was something where I was just like, I want to do something about, well, I mean, the idea behind that was, we covered classic games, but we weren't just like playing the ROM essentially. And it was like, I'm going to actually make sure we have a complete copy of this game, and we're going to open it up and look at the box and the manual and all the stuff that it came with. And we're going to do that. And we're going to use that to illustrate that. Because a lot of people, today they're like, oh, I played Super Mario Brothers, but like, it's like you didn't have that experience of like reading the manual before you played Super Mario Brothers and sort of getting primed for all of like the stuff about the story and things like that were in the manual that got you ready to play that game. And even Nintendo understands that, because when they re-release, like the NES Classic and stuff like that, they made the manuals and things like that available online. It's important to have that stuff. And so I wanted to, show people these things and this dovetails right into Cowabunga collection of my work at Digital Eclipse.
Right.
We wanted to make sure, I wanted to put that context around, not just present a game ROM, but, have the full context that you would have had when you bought that game back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, this is the huge accomplishment here with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga collection out this week. I streamed this thing. I just jumped into it like, yeah, I'll jump around to some of those old games, because you want to run down the games real quick, not to put you on the spot, but what's all in this?
Oh, yeah, sure. So for the NES, the 4 NES games, Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, 3, Manhattan Project, and then Tournament Fighters. On the Genesis, there's Hyperstone Heist, and then the Genesis version of Tournament Fighters. On the SNES, there's Turtles in Time, and the SNES version of Tournament Fighters. There's 3 Game Boy games, which are Fall, the Foot Clan, Back from the Sewers, and Radical Rescue. And then, of course, the 2 arcade games, which are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and then Turtles in Time, the arcade version.
Love
13 games plus the 11 Japanese it is way too many, because then we also had the 11 Japanese variations of those games as well. So it's really 24 games, if you want to call it that.
It is mind-boggling.
I want to tell you my experience just a little bit with it, because I love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Back from the Sewers, the Game Boy game, the second Game Boy game, because it was like one of my first Game Boy games, right? I had that and like Mario, 6 Golden Coins, and Tetris. And so I downloaded it, and I was like, well, this is the niche one. Like, this is for me. I went and played it and beat it, and I was like, surely they don't have anything for this one. Right. I mean, this is like the most minor one. And I was like, honestly blown away that I was like, oh my God, I remember looking at this booklet as a kid. I remember the book. You guys have like concept art for a Game Boy Ninja Turtles sequel game that I since I've tweeted about it, I now feel like, David Cross and Arrested Development, where it's like there are dozens of us. Like, I'm finding the people who are huge fans of that game. But like the fact that you guys went into that much detail, even for what I felt like was one of the minor games, like really surprised me, and I was very impressed. So compliments to you guys.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just about like, just first of all, yes, absolutely. Like every one of these games is somebody's favorite. Every one of these games is a game somebody grew up with. So that's why we really wanted to make sure every single game was in here, because, not just because people will be like, well, where's this game? Where's that game? But because that, these games, really are special to people. There's people who didn't have consoles, but they had a Game Boy. And so they put 40 to 100 hours into Fall of the Foot Clan. And then beyond that, just the fact that we were able to get, as you say, I mean, all these design documents and things like that from the Konami archives, we were blown away with what Konami had saved and what they had available to us and could get to us. And then, to go through it all and sort it all out and, add all the translations to it so you can really read through it. Even if you're not a huge fan of that game, it is a amazing window into the design processes, that these guys at Konami used back in the day to design these 8 and 16-bit games or even Game Boy games. You can see the behind the scenes. You never get to see that.
It's unbelievable.
I could finally learn why Shredder pranced instead of walked for whatever reason. He has this really awkward like and I finally have insight to that. As a child, I just thought I would never learn.
Yeah, I mean, that's the experience is booting up this thing and jumping around to the games and then just being like, okay, what do they have for museum stuff? And it is just on another level. It is unbelievable.
Again,
and then
too much.
Yeah, and then it also has comic books, like the entire, like every TMNT show, and I was like, hang on, are they gonna have the full episodes in here? It's like, okay, but they have stills from all the seasons, but were you pushing for the episodes, or you want to talk about like the limits?
No, that was something. So we wanted to have the screenshots. So the idea is, and what really ties this all together is, so there's like nearly 2,000 individual elements that are in the Turtles Lair, which is the museum for this game.
Yeah.
And there's to help you find all of that stuff, there's a search feature. And so you can actually basically you can click radio buttons in the search feature, and you can say I want to find all of the magazine advertisements for 16-bit games that feature April O'Neil, and it'll
right,
basically
Creeper.
make
All right.
it'll pull that right up for you. Yeah, exactly right. And it'll pull that right up for you. And the best part about that is that all of the individual show screenshots and comic book covers are involved in this as well. And what that means is, okay, great. Now you can compare. So if you want to look up the character Rex 1 from the from Ninja Turtles 2, back from the sewers, is the robot that you have to fight when you lose a turtle and you want to rescue them and get them back. You can now go ahead and see. I mean, not only can you find design documents for that Rex 1 fight, but you can see what Rex 1 looked like in the cartoon because that screenshot is in there. So if you want to compare and contrast between the video games and the comics and the cartoons, individual characters, that's something that you can do as well.
Your all's work over there, I mean, it's just proof that dorks have won. The fact that something like this can exist and it can be so thorough, it's like, okay, you have proven that it's financially viable to pack this much dorky content of just old magazine scans of ads. It is just a ridiculous treasure trove of stuff.
And it's not without its cost, because it's like people have to work on this stuff. We have to get paid to do it. And not only that, but, when we get so much stuff, it's like, okay, well, now we have to use a bigger Nintendo Switch card, for the physical game release,
really?
And like that creates a cost as well. And so the important thing is, when it gets out there and the players see it and they like it and they say, oh, I've spent hours, looking through the Turtles Lair content, as I'm seeing people say on Twitter. It all makes it worthwhile to have spent the literal a lot of money in making this happen.
Yeah. Okay. The part that really blew my mind, and I'm curious if you found this as well, Kyle, but you can jump into all these games, and then there's an option just to watch the game being played, which I think is incredible. And my first thought is this would be kind of fun just to put on at the background of a party. Just here's just all these old Turtles games being played. It's going to just be a wave of nostalgia for you. But then the part that truly is mind-boggling is at any point as you're scrubbing through and playing that as just a video, you can just take the controls and jump in and start playing. And it's not like it's going to load you to that level. This is mind-boggling. How is that possible?
Because it's not a video. It's an emulator, playthrough that's going on, and all we have to do is just sort of stop where it's happening, and then you can just take control.
So did you guys have to find someone to play the game through?
One of our designers did, and the thing is that we also have save and load, and we also have the rewind function. So the person doing the watch mode playthroughs has access to rewind and save load and stuff like that. Actually, on a Blizzard Arcade Collection, which we did last year, Drew Scanlon actually did the playthroughs.
Oh, that's
and it's
awesome.
you can, once you have rewind, it makes it, and that's why we love the rewind function in these games as well, is because it really makes it a lot easier to go through these games when you can say, "Oops, I messed up. Let me rewind and start again." But it also it's this perfect playthrough that it would be very, very difficult for a human being to sit down and do a no-hit run through on these games, but we do it so that when you do it functions as a level select. I mean, you can just jump to wherever you want to practice a certain area of the game, and when you do that, you will be there with full health. So essentially, you're in a good position to practice that area if you want to.
Yeah.
And then you're right. There is we present these games as, think of this as a coffee table book of historical artifacts. We want to be able to just sort of let you watch the game be played through as well. I mean, that's sort of part of encountering it as a historical artifact as well, because it's not it's putting too much on a person, a historian or a casual sort of observer to say, okay, here's the game, now play through it yourself. It's to be able to look at it and see what's going on there. It essentially makes this a history book of Turtles games.
That's how I experienced the NES version of Ninja Turtles last night, because I'm untold number of kids, back then. I'm sure I never got past the water level because it's ridiculous, and it was still ridiculous trying to play it through it last night. And it was it was just mind-boggling to see a no-hit run of that entire game in the first place, but then also, going back, because the rewind feature is a blessing, but even then I still failed the water level the first time because there's a 2-minute time limit to it. And so I was just losing too much time, as I was doing the run. But then when I played through it again, I could jump right into the strategy guide that has, like the full layout to see where all the different bombs are that you have to defuse it. And it was such a weird kind of wonderful melding of remembering this thing from my childhood and actually finally being able to overcome it. And then, I didn't play the entire thing, but then watching the rest of it, played by this perfect run through is just so awesome.
For a lot of people, well, I see some people like, oh, I'm finally going to beat Turtles 1. This is this thing I've never been able to do as a kid. I'm finally going to do it. And for some people, it's like, I'm finally just going to beat the damn level. Like once I get through that underwater level, I'm good. I'm done.
Yeah.
How many of these kind of collections have you worked on now at Digital Eclipse?
So this is my third. We had the Blizzard Arcade Collection, which came out at the beginning of 2021, which was like Lost Vikings, Blackthorn, and Rock and Roll Racing, of course. And then we did an update to Disney Classic Games Collection, where we added the SNES version of Aladdin into the game that already existed, plus the Jungle Book, and that came out at the end of 2021. So I've got this, and then a couple of months from now, in November, we're going to have Atari 50, the anniversary celebration, which is basically imagine like we take the games and we take the museum content, and there's no more games in museum. Now it's all one big interactive historical experience where you go through the timeline of Atari, essentially from the founding all the way to the end of the Atari Jaguar era, basically. And on this timeline that you're scrolling through, you have artifacts, you've got design documents and boxes and stuff like that, but then you also have games, and the games are put in the chronological place that they would be. So even as you're sort of scrolling through the game list, you're sort of learning about Atari history. And a lot of what that is that with the Atari games, especially now, like almost 50 years later for some of these games, almost 50 years for a lot of them, we might want to sit down and play Ninja Turtles Radical Rescue for a few hours, but like there's fewer and fewer people who want to sit down and play like Asteroids for a few hours.
Right.
But if it's integrated into this museum type experience where it's like, this is why Asteroids is important. Try it for yourself. Pew, pew, pew. Okay, that was fun. I'm going to go back to the museum now and keep going.
I love it.
It essentially creates this sort of like interactive learning, historical, fun kind of experience. And like that's sort of like, that's what we're trying to do now with Atari 50 and then sort of later collections as well.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're all moving in that direction of trying to make those more and more seamless, the distinction between kind of the gallery area and the games? Do eventually you just want to get to the point of like, we're just making documentary video games at this point?
Yeah, exactly. That's precisely it. And you'll even see, we're going to start getting into self-publishing some stuff as well. You're going to see us like completely unfettered by anybody else's expectations and just able to do whatever crazy stuff it is that we want to do with other games, and just trying many different things in an effort to sort of just rethink all the time like what these things can be.
I love it. I'd love to know about talking and communicating with Konami, getting access to these old files for TMNT. What was that exchange like? How much did they save? All that good stuff.
So this project kind of started with Konami, and Charles Murakami, our producer at Konami, he had worked with us on Yu-Gi-Oh games before, but he was very, very enthusiastic. He works in the Konami US office. The previous collections, like the Contra and the Castlevania Anniversary collections, had been managed out of Japan, Japan is not really where the Ninja Turtles are extremely popular. And so, Charles and the US folks were kind of passing back to Japan like, hey, like, we're getting a lot of feedback. Like, people want a Turtles collection. They really, really want this. Charles was very enthusiastic about it's got to be all the games. It has to be all the games because we potentially only have this one shot to do this, right? Because it is a licensed property. Like, we can't leave anything on the table. Like, it's got to be everything. And so what kind of happened was Konami was like, okay, Charles, well, you seem very enthusiastic about this, so you do it, and so he really wanted to work with us at Digital Eclipse on this, and so we were very much kind of in lockstep, between us and the team at Konami US, that it had to be everything, and that we wanted just to get every kind of historical piece of information that we could into this and really make it a premium, product. This is not like a $10 downloadable, afterthought type game. Like this is a $40, there's a physical, there's a limited edition. I mean, it's a big AAA, has a AAA marketing spend behind it. It's a big thing. So Charles starts asking around at Konami about like development materials, and starts to hear, well, yeah, we have stuff, but it's in the Konami archive building, which is in Japan, and it's like a multi-hour train ride away from Konami headquarters, and also it is peak COVID when we're asking about this. Nobody's vaccinated yet, so nobody's in the office, and nobody's been there in a long time, and we don't really know what we have. So we were planning on, well, what if there's nothing? Like, what if we don't get anything?
Right.
And so that's why you see so much other stuff. I actually had gone to the Strong Museum of Play in Rochester, New York, which has an incredible collection on just the history of toys and games and everything like that, and industry magazines and things. And I got a lot of scans and things like that from the Strong. Spent a week there doing it. And it was like, okay, like we have a lot of stuff going on. We have the boxes and the manuals and the magazine ads. We have this, we have that. And then we hear that, okay, somebody's going to go to the Konami archive and they're going to look for stuff. Okay, great. So Charles ends up like on a FaceTime call. Oh, because by the way, Charles is not even allowed to go into the archive. Like only a select group of people are even allowed to go in there. And what? I'm not on that list and he's not on that list. And yeah, it's super locked down. So he's FaceTiming with somebody who's like allowed to be in there, and they start taking down, binders off of these shelves and opening them up and showing him like on the phone, like these design documents, and he's seeing them for the first time. And they're like, are any of these interesting to you? What sort of stuff is interesting to you? And he's just like, everything, scan everything in that binder. And then they're like, okay. And then they're like, they take down binder number 2. What about this? Everything. Okay, here's Super NES Tournament Fighters, giant binder for SNES, just SNES Tournament Fighters. Oh my God,
that's amazing.
Everything. Okay, here's binder number 2 for SNES Tournament Fighters, because Tournament Fighters...
That one we can skip. We're good on that one.
Yeah. They had animators doing every frame of animation for all the fighters, and there was a piece of paper for each frame of animation for each fighter. And so they had them all. And so they scanned like nearly 1,000 documents out of there. And I mean, when I opened up that zip file, that was one of the best days of like my life, because I was like, what is going to be in here? And I just open up this zip file. It's huge. It's full of folders. And I just pick a random folder and just start looking. And my eyes just start watering, because I mean, we're just looking at these design documents that had never been seen in like 30 years. It was incredible. And every single freaking one of them is in the game, because it wasn't let's pick and choose the most interesting things. It's like, no, it's like, let's organize it all. Let's sort it all out. Let's do the very like labor intensive work of, transcribing all of the handwritten Japanese in these things, first of all, then getting it all translated, and then figuring out a way to implement it back into the game. I had to I went to the engineer on the project. I'm like, hey, so what I want to do is I want to have the document on the screen. Then you press a button and it pops up a second layer, and it's like floating text over the document. And it sort of shows, the translations of those things, but I have to be able to put the text where it goes so people understand where the text is and everything. It's like, can we do that? And the engineer is like, can I display text at a given XY coordinate on the screen? Yes. I'm like, right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. So he it's like, well, sure. So he built a tool that let me sit down and insert all of these things like page by page without having any, programming knowledge. I could essentially just do it in sort of a graphical user interface type thing. And then we translated into a whole bunch of languages, and then all the text overran all the boxes. So then which we knew was going to happen. And then at that point, everybody banded together. Everybody like took a language, you know what I mean? And just went in and just like resized all the boxes. So, I mean, it looks great, whatever language you're using. And it's just like, you can just sit there for hours, like reading through all of these pages and like finding out all the notes that the designers made on everything. And I mean, it's just for me as a person who buys, collections of old video games, I mean, it was very simple in the sense it's just like, okay, I'm just going to make the thing that I would want the most, and just do it that way.
It's so heartwarming to know that Konami has saved all this stuff. I mean, I don't know how it compares to other big Japanese publishers, but like that gives me hope as a huge Sunset Riders fan. Like, do they have old design documents for Sunset Riders, do you think, in that same building?
You know what? I will never know unless if we work on a Sunset Riders collection or something.
That might be a little while. It's like Mystic Warriors and Sunset Riders.
Organize a heist.
Kyle, please! How dare you? These are the turtles. They fight crime.
Are you podcasting about the crime you're planning?
Did you have any communication, or did Konami, I don't know, reach out to any of the old developers? I assume they're not still there, people that worked on these old games.
Basically, like a couple of people were still there. I mean, again, so height of COVID, doing interviews would have been extremely difficult. The people that were still there were like, oh yeah, I worked on that. I debugged like this portion of the game or something like that. So it was sort of like made the decision that, video interviews were not going to be something that was part of this based on that.
Gotcha. Do you feel like you understand Konami better after working on this project? I mean, the internet always swirling with like, what is happening within Konami these days? Do you feel like you got a couple good pieces of insight?
You know what? I mean, I again, yes. Well, the fact that, I'm really, really grateful that Konami in Japan has done such a great job of archiving all of this original material, making sure that it's, make sure that it's accessible, being able to get it to us, and having it, essentially having having it ready, and maintaining it, even when it's something like Turtles, where it's like, what if they never got the Turtles license back? What would they be able to do with that? And certainly we had a tremendous partner in the team at Konami USA, because they really believed in us and they fought for us, and they really understood, like, it was them who had to make the case internally, right, all the time for, no, this is why these guys want to do it this way. Yes, it is more expensive. Yes, it is difficult. Yes, it is going to take longer. But like that is we have to do it this way, and really, articulated that case for us, and so we were really, really happy to work with them.
Yeah, it's amazing. From your perspective, how did you feel about Shredder's Revenge coming out this year as well? I think the internet was on pins and needles for a while, like, which game is coming first? It's weird to have so much turtle brawler action happening next to each other.
Yeah, I think it all worked out great. Because, Shredder's Revenge, when it did come out, I mean, first of all, it was like phenomenal. I played it with my wife and my older kid, and we just loved it. And not only was it great, but the way the nostalgia that it had, or the references that it made, were very specifically to these older games. Like, Shredder's Revenge could have been filled with references to, the TV show or the movies or whatever, but really so much of it was just sort of referring back to what had happened in the Konami classic games. Yeah. So now you have this brand new audience of people who all really enjoyed this turtle brawler, and now it's like, okay, now we can show you where that all came from. So, I mean, I think it just worked out, just set them up and knocked them down. Yeah. It was great.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on the game. It's really
thank you.
Hell of a collection you got rolling on there. Can you explain one thing? And I'm sure this is going to be a 45-minute discussion, but I'm confused. The name of this Digital Eclipse at Other Ocean. I've always been confused about what's Other Ocean, what's Digital Eclipse.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on there?
So, the company, Other Ocean Interactive, that existed, and then Other Ocean got back the Digital Eclipse branding from its previous owners.
Okay.
And then started up Digital Eclipse, sort of as a division to concentrate on, these retro collections specifically. But now pretty much everybody in we're all just going by Digital Eclipse in the Emeryville, California office, and everybody is working on Digital Eclipse branded stuff. And there's other stuff with with like the the company or the subsidiary essentially works. That's like above my pay grade. But basically, like what you can see now is that everybody at the Emeryville office and the Washington office as well is like fully devoted to digital Eclipse projects, and we're kind of like expanding the definition of what a digital Eclipse project is. Time was like the Space Jam game that we did, for Xbox. Right. That would have been considered maybe like an Other Ocean, a licensed type game, but now it's a digital Eclipse product, and it's like digital Eclipse is the classic collections, but also games or new games inspired by the classics are done with that same mentality.
So it's a stronger brand, so it's eclipsing the Other Ocean entirely at this point. Got it.
Yeah, well, there's Other Ocean still definitely exists, but it's not the stuff that we're working on in Emeryville, because there's the Other Ocean office in Canada as well. So you may see Other Ocean branded stuff.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and fun fact is Kelsey Lewin is a contributor to MinnMax here, and it's weird that you guys share the office with Video Game History Foundation there.
Well, it's not that weird, but it's no, it actually makes total sense.
Yeah, it's nice culturally that you two are just simpatico for being dorks for history. And just different avenues of expressing it.
Right. Yeah. Well, of course, Frank Cifaldi was one of the founders of the original, the rebirth of Digital Eclipse, and he left to run the Video Game History Foundation full time and rents the office space, from us. But it's great. I get to see Frank and Kelsey all the time when I go to the office.
That's awesome. Great. Hey, Kyle, do you know how MinnMax operates, by the way?
Stolen Konami
documentation. No, Kyle, no,
we're not doing
no
that.
heist, not even of the Hyperstone variety. Patreon, everybody, patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. If you like independent games media and you want to help support it directly, you can follow that URL, unlock a bunch of benefits as well over there. And thank you to some of our biggest supporters, wonderful people like I Am 8-Bit. They want everybody to know about the Stray vinyl soundtrack, which you can get. It's a double vinyl soundtrack for the fantastic soundtrack to Stray. Music by Jan van der Kruisen, and then they also have the I Am 8-Bit exclusive edition of Stray on PS4 and PS5. It comes with a bunch of other stuff, huge poster of the concept art, a fuzzy petable patch of the cat itself. So please check that out at I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store. You can go to that store, there's a link below, and you can get 10% off everything in that store under $100 by using the promo code Sturgeon Moon. Sturgeon Moon, everybody, for 10% off. There's no space there. Again, if you're confused about what words I'm saying, look in the description, enter that code. You'd be helping us. You'd be helping I Am 8-Bit. Thank you to I Am 8-Bit for being wonderful supporters of ours. And they are such wonderful supporters of ours that they are going to ship out a prize each and every week from their wonderful online store to whoever submitted the best question for the MinnMax Show podcast over on Patreon. So Chris, we need your help remembering every good question submitted, and then that person who has the absolute best one that we all agree is the best one, that person gets a wonderful prize from I Am 8-Bit. Okay, here we go. DL McKay writes in and says, "Hey, MinnMax and Chris, I just want to take the time to thank Chris for their work on the Cowabunga collection. I've played around with the bonus material in the turtle with the big goofy Michelangelo smile going over the material." Okay. It's super cool and really nostalgic seeing some of the old advertisements that used to appear in GamePro and the back pages of comics. My question is, do you have any dream projects you'd like to see this kind of material get gathered for? Like, what is the holy grail for you, Chris, for this type of collection? I know.
Let me make a Mario collection, right?
God,
I mean, if you're asking what's the dream project, yeah, sure. I mean, Nintendo, give me a call. Super Mario Brothers, Mario 2, Doki Doki Panic. Just give me all the design documents that went into that. We'll do high res scans. We'll go crazy.
All right, scale of 1 to 10.
I'm not gonna hold my breath for that phone call, by the way.
Yeah, scale of 1 to 10. How satisfying do you think their Kyoto museum will be when they finally unveil that?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't looked too closely into that. I just want to go back to Japan. I want Japan to start letting people in again.
It'd be nice.
It's been long enough. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't know. I
want to sleep in that hotel. I went down to that. So I used to live like a brisk 5-minute walk away from the old Nintendo playing card building.
Really? That's amazing.
And I always, whenever people visited me in Kyoto, I'd be like, okay, we're going to go somewhere. And I'd just walk them down the street and be like, here you go. And you're standing in front of this nondescript building and it's like, here it is. And people are like, here what? It's like this little tiny little street with like houses and, whatever on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, here it is. And I just make them look at the building until it clicks and they see the little plaque that says the Nintendo Playing Card Company, And once I did not break into this building, but they started locking the front door because of me, because I went down and in Japan, people leave their front doors open. Because the idea is that when you walk in the front door, you're not in the house yet, you're in the entryway. And when somebody's like delivering your mail, or when somebody comes over and it's just like, oh, hey, are you home? They open the door, step into the entryway, and then they're like, hey, are you home? So, they had the front door of this thing open. So I went up to it. This is early 2002. And I went inside the building and inside the lobby of this building, this is 20 years ago, was it was kind of dark inside the lobby because, nobody was supposed to be in there. But there was picture frames hung up with all Nintendo's old playing cards, like displayed in the big picture frames.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I started looking around and I only had a couple of seconds to like glance around this lobby at all this like old Nintendo history that was like hanging on the walls when suddenly an old man who I could now see was sort of back. There was like a front office, like with a glass. It was like the front desk, basically. He's back behind like this front desk area, kind of in the back of the little lobby. And the guy looks up at me and he looks up at me. And he's just like, he goes, "Kengaku dame," which means like no field trips, or like you can't just no coming in here and looking around. And I was like, oh, and I just like, whoop, beat it out of there. And then I came back like a week later and the door was locked. And the door was locked ever since then.
I like the idea of you trying a second time. Like, let's see if I can memorize a couple more of these pieces of art.
So we tried this door again. Oh, come on. That was exactly the sort of person I was, though. I'm like, I beat it out of there, but I went back. You go back a week later, maybe somebody else is in there, and they would, maybe they would appreciate sort of a random idiot coming in and looking around. Who knows?
Come on in, use our bathroom.
But now you can go back. They converted it into a hotel, so I really want to go there and stay the night in this hotel and actually get to be in there and look around.
That's gonna be funky.
Finally have your field trip.
That's right. Nick S. writes in and they ask, what was your favorite cartoon as a kid and does it hold up now? One of the top ones for me was probably Scooby-Doo, and most of those still hold up. Yeah, Scooby-Doo's like, look, it's formulaic, but like, Kyle, I know you're shaking your head, but like the formula works. It is always a fun ride,
I'm not
right?
a Scooby-Doo fan.
Yeah, well, you might be wrong. Now it's one of the most popular characters on Earth thanks to multiverses. All the kids are getting back into Scooby-Doo, Kyle, and you just have to live with it.
I live with one. I don't think she likes Scooby-Doo, though.
Oh, is she playing a lot of multiverses?
No.
Oh, okay.
She doesn't like hitting things in games.
Oh, well, that's probably a good sign. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of... I haven't watched it since it was airing live on TV, but Mighty Max was a very important cartoon for me growing up, to the point that I was thinking like, oh, did that have an influence on naming this company MinnMax even? Because I like the word Max because of Mighty Max and his stupid hat and adventures with Virgil and all his wonderful friends. So I'm just going to assume that it holds up very well. Just like the Mega Man TV show. I'm sure it's still like just flawless in every way.
I mean, mine's Batman the Animated Series. And in the last like 4 years or so, I've gone back and like started it.
Yeah.
And like not every episode is a winner. But like the really good ones are still really good. Like it's kind of wild how sort of serious it's all taken within that animated show. Yeah,
did you hear that HBO also canned the Bruce Timm new animated series for Batman?
Yeah, it's too good for this world.
That's right. Sorry to tell you, Chris. I mean, not to go back in the turtle world,
as a little kid, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, does that hold up? Absolutely not. No. As a like 11-year-old, Animaniacs, does it hold up? Yes, definitely.
The thing that came on before Batman, is that what that was?
How dare you?
I think so. Yeah. I turned it right off after that. I'm like, it's too serious. And then like as a 15-year-old, Sailor Moon. Which, of course, has held up extraordinarily well. Yeah.
And Jeffem, was it just the old Nickelodeon newsreels, or what was your cup of tea?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was probably, I guess I'd say DuckTales.
Yeah. I think it holds up. We watched a bunch back at the Game Informer office with like Margaret Andrews and stuff, and we were laughing.
I watched a couple on, I think they're on Disney Plus now, and it was okay, I guess. But
what do you want?
Endorsement.
Yeah, it wasn't like a hurricane for your life. Bob Buell writes in and says, it's Bob Buell, and that's it. Okay, no fancy name or anything here. No siree is his official name on Patreon. So thanks, Bob, for that mouthful. They say, howdy, Hanson and the Re-Pacs. That's right. What's the earliest game that you remember finding a cheat or a secret in? Maybe not even one that you read in a guide or anything, but you truly discovered on your own. So
Bart versus the Space Mutants.
Yeah.
That game, especially in the first level of that game, there's a lot of secrets and stuff like that. And I remember there's a point in the first level of Bart versus the Space Mutants where you can jump off of a building onto a bush. And if you do that, you will land on an invisible platform. And then if you press down, you'll fall through the platform, and the letters, I think it might even be GK for Gary Kitchen, maybe, somebody's initials fall out of the sky and land on you, and you get a 1-up. And when I found that, that was not in any strategy guides or anything. It was a developer initials Easter egg, gives you a 1-up in that first level.
That's
and
good.
At the time that I found that for myself, and that was crazy.
I love that. I want to be that's a little hammy to put your initials in that Simpsons game. It's isn't the whole thing that is this just some weird, old myth, but the idea of Homer's hair and his ear, it's MG for Matt Groening, right? It seems like initials are a core part of the Simpsons design.
I've heard that. Yeah. I don't know if that was all pre-internet speculation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess mine would be the NES version of Rampage when if you got turned down into the human, I think you could just mash the A and B button together and then you would grow back up before you lost your life in that game.
Yeah.
Which was a very kid-friendly secret, since you were just mashing buttons the entire time anyway. But
hey, that works.
Once we figured that out, that was a game changer.
Hell yeah. Kyle, you had one?
Oh yeah, it was my brother specifically found in the first minecart level of Donkey Kong Country. If you just jump off the edge, there's a hidden barrel that'll shoot you to the end of the level. And we, it was oh, that's really cool. But the thing that really blew our mind is a couple of months later, we got the strategy guide, and that was not in the strategy guide.
Ooh,
and then we
nice.
were we found something special. And those minecart levels are really hard, especially when you're young and the first time you play them. So to find sort of a skip for that level was really empowering.
Hell yeah, that's amazing. How excited was your brother when he found that? Could you do an impersonation of him?
Whoa!
Wow, that's interesting.
I don't remember specifically.
Brian Ventura writes and says, hey, MinnMax, I think closing credits offer a great moment of satisfaction after finishing a good game or movie, but I feel oddly guilty when I skip them sometimes. I feel like I should be soaking in each name out of respect for their work, but ultimately the big list of names just washes over me. Do y'all skip credits?
No.
Yeah, I'll check my phone, but it is a moment of all right, let's see if any names pop out that I might recognize here. And then also I worry about there being a post-credits thing that I accidentally skip over, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we're very cool now too, and sometimes there'll be people that I know in the credits, and I'm always oh, hey, all right, let me take a picture of that and text it to him.
We're cool now. Yeah, Chris, as somebody who's in-game credits, does it mean that you don't skip them now?
Some credit sequences have gotten very long, and sometimes you think to yourself, how long am I going to sit here listening to repeating music? I appreciate now when you can fast forward through credits, so I don't have to skip them. Yeah. I don't need to see them scroll really slowly. And then, of course, I do. We always look for people that we know. But yeah, I will fast forward them if given the opportunity, for sure.
That's allowable. God's Garage writes in on Patreon and asks, how about that dang corn song? As an Ohioan, I feel seen. So, full confession, we went to the Minnesota State Fair for that whole travelogue, which is on MinnMax's YouTube channel, and it was a great time. There's a lot of corn at the State Fair, and so Sarah and Janet kept referencing that corn song, and because I already felt like their weird old dad, I was just yeah, totally, the corn song. I have no idea what anybody's talking about. It's a TikTok corn song? Is that the idea?
Yeah, it's this kid who's he loves corn, and he's getting interviewed, and he's just he's more excited about corn than I was about Tinykin like 45 minutes ago. And they songified it, and it's like really catchy. And it's like it's just one of those things that it's like, man, this kid is living the best life, and it makes me happy.
Jeffem, how do you know about this hip corn kid?
I know it because when I saw that question in Slack, I Googled corn song and went down the rabbit hole and figured out the same thing Kyle did.
Wow.
The kid's emotional intelligence is off the chart for that age because he really understood it. He was like, if you like corn, you should come to me and I'll tell you all about it. And yeah, it's a winner.
Was this the Songify the News, the Gregory brothers who did the song, or is it somebody else?
It certainly sounds like them, but I don't know if it is them. I mean, Hanson, do you want to try to pull it up? Is it like that crucial for you?
No, people can look it up, I think.
Okay.
Also,
Chipotle, the most impressive thing to me is Chipotle.
It's them.
It is them?
Okay.
Wow.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Chipotle like tracked him down, and hopefully, I hope he was well compensated. But he appears in an ad, and I'm like, dang, they turned that around fast. They got this meme kid to order corn at Chipotle.
Weird.
Yeah.
And now we're all craving Chipotle, so mission accomplished. Malcolm Holiday, right?
Chipotle. I'm craving corn.
Just corn.
I only get my corn at Chipotle. Yeah, load up my bowl, please. Malcolm Holiday says, hey, crew, I have a Better Quest goal in question. My Better Quest goal is I'm trying my best to learn piano relatively decently. I have a keyboard, and I've been using online resources to learn lessons. It feels weird being 27 trying to pick up a new skill, but I'm hopeful. I will check in periodically with any substantial progress. Janet's also learning piano, Malcolm, so you can talk about it on Discord with her. Question, are there any skills or talents that you picked up in your adult life?
By the way, real quick, Leo's recent goal where he made a song.
Yeah.
And he sent me the song and took out the drums.
Right.
And then I've added the drums now. So next time me and Leo are on an episode together, we can listen to it together.
Okay.
It'll be fun.
That sounds good. Is that your new skill, Kyle? Is relearning drums?
Mine has cooking in a big way. I do all the cooking, and I cook a lot now in the last like 4 years. And then also like I've gotten a lot better at like just around the house stuff, like reinstalling doors. I'm doing now. I'm like totally overhauling a room. I laid a bunch of floor down recently. My wife and I have put up drywall. Now my wife is like the drywall expert. Like she can handle that and put on joint compound and stuff like that. So we're getting fancy with those kind of skills.
It was a while ago. It was like a couple weeks ago, but you were wheeling your toilet outside to clean it?
I don't need to explain myself.
What? I don't think that's how you clean a toilet. What was that?
No, we remodeled the bathroom.
Really bad.
It was rough. No, we remodeled the bathroom, and I had to pull the bathroom out of the bathroom to put down tile.
Oh, okay.
I will admit, we did actually have someone come in and do the tile.
Coward.
That's I know. But it was like I had to, just the easiest way to get it out of there was to put it on a skateboard, and I had to be out of the bathroom for a few days for the tile, so I just put it out back, and it was like raining, and I was like, I might as well clean this thing while it's like out here,
And then you used it in your yard too?
Yes, that's right.
Thank you.
Becoming a homeowner forces you to learn all of this stuff if you don't literally want to be calling somebody and paying them $1,000 every time like something happens. I had like we had a leak in one of our toilets, and I'm like, okay, today's I'm gonna go down and fix this thing. I think I know what I have to do, but so I go down there, and then like after like an hour, like my wife opens the door, and I'm sitting there like the toilet's in pieces, you know what I mean? Toilet parts are everywhere. I'm just covered in like, black, gunk basically. Not poop, but just like all of the just everything is just ridiculous.
Wax and stuff like that.
I had to take the gas. It was leaking. It was the gas. It was either the gasket or the rubber washers or whatever it was. We went to Lowe's and bought every kind of toilet gasket and came back, and they were all wrong. You know what I mean? Because it was a special. It was a Kohler toilet. They have a special gasket on the thing. You can imagine that.
Kohler.
So, but then I just took it all apart, and then I like put it all back together and just put it all back together. I'm like, okay, it was fixed, it was just whatever it was, but yes, like everything from, we just had to rescreen a door, and it's just like, man, homeownership is, I don't know what it's like. Is renting the scam or is homeownership the scam?
Yeah,
one of them has got to be a scam.
That's really
just
tough.
boot up the YouTube tutorial. Let's go.
Thank God for that. I had to replace the the heater busted, and it was the it's the whatever the heck the thing is that heats, it's like the thing that starts the light that catches fire basically, and it's the heating element, the super hot rock. And thank God for YouTube, because I could just look on YouTube and it's like, oh, check this, if it's this then it's that, and then here's how you replace it. And I'm like, oh, I can't imagine having to do this stuff without YouTube. Probably would have had to buy a book or ask somebody, both of which are completely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the total dad answer of like, I experienced this, like 6 months ago, where it's just kind of like, you look around and you realize you're the oldest person and therefore responsible for everything, and it all falls on you all of a sudden. And it's just been that laundry list of like fixing stuff around the house. I just fixed the dryer the other day.
Hey, way to go, man.
Had to replace the belt on a dryer and like take the whole thing apart. I called my dad at one point and he was like, oh yeah, it's real simple. And it's like, wow, I understand my dad now so much more than I ever have before in my life.
Blasting Cat's cradle while fixing a dryer. Yep. Philly Eatsteak writes in and says, hey, let's get morbid for a second, if everybody's on board for getting morbid. Okay. It's morbid time, as the kids say. If you had to guess, at what year would more gamer tags / accounts belong to deceased people than living people? At some point it'll happen. Okay, what year is that?
That's weird, because I'm trying to think of like, there's the advent of like, you got to find when there was the biggest surge of people creating usernames, right? Because like now Discord, you don't have to like lock in a username anymore.
Really. Right. So let's say like Xbox gamer tags, like
360 probably, right?
Yeah. I mean, 2070.
2100.
There you go.
Mark your calendars, everybody. Play back this podcast then. Steven,
should we make a bet on it so that we can?
I will bet my life.
Right in a couple hundred years.
If it's not 2070, you have permission to hunt me down and murder me. Steven Lamson writes in, we're talking about games that need remakes, Chris, so it's going to be a lot of this, so buckle up.
Okay.
Steven Lamson says that out of any game, that Final Fantasy VI needs a remake.
They just made one.
Well, Pixel Remaster. They changed a couple scenes. They like
okay. So is he saying like a full on?
I think so. From the ground up, as we like to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they tried that with Final Fantasy VII, and they're only like a third of the way through, and I never know when they're going to do. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, of course, I think that would be that would be the absolute sweet spot for me, is to play a fully HD 3D game in the Final Fantasy VI world. But I think that has anybody ever pulled that off though? Because I mean, Final Fantasy VI is so. I mean, all of the design is so predicated on the fact that it's a 2D, 16-bit game. Even with Final Fantasy VII, it's like they can't simply transpose it. Final Fantasy VII Remake, spoilers, is really like not a remake of Final Fantasy VII, right? So it's like you can't really do it, and you absolutely can't do it with a 16-bit game. So I think we imagine these things in our head, because everything like, Sabin suplexing a train in Final Fantasy VI is literally like, I took this sprite and I took that sprite and I flipped them and I moved them up and down and I did it in 30 seconds. Whereas Sabin suplexing a train in Final Fantasy VI Remake for PS5 is like somebody, some visual effects team has to work on that for like a year. You can't do it.
But it's going to look possible. So sweet. If that was just the game, they said, hey, it's Final Fantasy VI Remake Part 1, and it's just the suplexing a train sequence, but it's like an amazing 2 hours, I don't think anybody would complain. We're good.
No, not at all. Yeah, no, I mean, I think whatever you do, I think it would be nice to do something in that world, but then it would really have to be, it shouldn't be making it a remake would not make sense. Just make it something new, within that fiction.
It'd be like the action RPG All About Shadow or something, just like a cool side story like that.
I mean, I'm not quite as precious about it, and maybe this would be frustrating for some people, but like I would love the Live Alive Octopath approach. Right. I would love that for that era.
I'm not sick of that.
I think with Live Alive, I think it absolutely shows like why that HD 2D is the way to bring it into the modern day, but still retain with the appeal, and also make it so it's actually like physically possible to do it.
Yep, absolutely. Like We'd love to see the sales for Live Alive and then Dragon Quest 3, I think they're also doing, right? And so like if those two are still trending upwards for this, like hopefully it'll open the door and we can just get all these games remade in a weirdly more faithful way. Nick Olson says, I think the upcoming Netflix film will inspire a BioShock 1 remake. And I'm not mad about it. The original and the remaster still hold up great, but I'd love to see one built from the ground up in the vein of like Resident Evil 2. Yeah, that feels pretty recent, but I mean, I could see something with a Netflix movie, yeah. Jeremy L. says, hey everybody, a game that needs to be remade is the 2005 game Jade Empire by BioWare. I think that's a great contender.
That was on my list.
Yeah. I feel like you could overhaul some systems. It would find a new audience. I think that'd be a good one for
run a lot better. It was kind of a rough frame rate on that one, right?
Yeah. Owen McCarter says, hey, I missed out on PS1 and a lot of PS2 games growing up. So there's a ton of classics that I've heard about, but are difficult to go back to these days. Some of the biggest ones are Metal Gear Solid 1 through 3 and Legacy of Kain. Also, I'd be interested to see what a remake of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask would look like. Maybe combine both into one game? That'd be really interesting, but they wouldn't need to do that.
I'd be happy with those 3DS games on Switch.
Yeah,
honestly.
I would too.
Those remakes are good.
Yeah, I think it'd be a really great move. Chris, I know you're being paid by Konami right now, so feel free to cover your ears. But what did you think, Kyle and Jeff, about that story that was breaking this week about how Konami's like, hey, TGS, we're going to have a big announcement about a fan favorite series. I forget the exact wording, something like that, right? But then was it...
Didn't they sort of circle back and like not Silent Hill, or that's sort of the reporting?
The reporting
it,
was
right?
like, yeah, it's not Metal Gear and it's not Silent Hill, everybody. So, I mean, my money would be on Castlevania, but
yeah,
I don't want to get my hopes up in any way possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I am at with all those sort of things.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I would love something new for Metal Gear. I'd love something new for Silent Hill. I'd love something new for Castlevania. But, like, I would rather... I almost, like... We'll just let it happen and react rather than sort of put my expectations in the wrong place.
Yeah. All right. Jared Piers is going to make you all sweat here. They say, I thought of a game that might be fun to play to figure out who there is the most obscure gamer. Everyone takes turn naming games, but if anyone else in the podcast has heard of the game, they're out, and the last person standing wins.
I feel like we got a ringer.
Also, I don't know. I feel like we could all come up with something that's.
So how are these? I'm going to walk through this again. If anyone on the podcast has heard of the game, they're out. Okay. So then you stay. So
we have to come up with an obscure game and share it.
Gotcha. Oh,
right.
Okay.
Right. I got that part, but the part about when you're out is confusing to me. But okay, I'm going to go with a game that I just bought at a used game store and I hadn't heard of, which is a game called Creatures for PlayStation 1. Not Nightmare Creatures.
Oh, that's my favorite PS1 game.
Okay. Has anybody else heard of Creatures for PlayStation 1?
I can't say I have.
Okay. It's like a European character sim. You're like building up this colony. It looks bizarre.
Does the logo look like kind of like it has eyes in it, or is that Nightmare Creatures?
No, that might be Nightmare Creatures you're thinking of. Yeah.
I'm gonna Google Nightmare Creatures because I can see the logo
that's
a weird
Nightmare
spelling
Creatures.
of the word creatures.
That is Nightmare Creatures logo. But
okay.
All right, Jeff, hit us.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Cannondale Cup is my go-to for obscure games.
Haven't heard of it. Is that some Fairchild thing?
I have heard of that.
Sorry, Jeff.
Were you a Road Rash fan who couldn't play Road Rash back in the day?
No, I'm just a video game collector who I think has that. It's a Super Nintendo game, right? In my somewhere kicking around in my collection. Yes, yeah.
All right, I'll throw another one out there, Chris. I'm curious to see if you're hip to this one because I always think of it when I think of obscure games. But it was a favorite of mine growing up. Autobahn on Apple II.
No.
Okay, old racing
I'm not
game.
Familiar with it.
Okay, all right, Chris, hit us. What do you got, man?
Oh, sure. Okay. Which one should I say? How about the Crystal Dragon for the Famicom Disk System?
No, you got us.
Nobody?
Got us.
Okay, all right.
Is it good?
Pokemon Crystal precursor, I assume.
It was actually Square's first Famicom Disk System. So I'm thinking about Square now. It was their first Famicom Disk System original game. It was actually a point and click adventure in 1986.
Wow.
They had done like text parser adventure games on the computers, and this was a way of doing it on the Famicom Disk System. They actually had icons. It was like, look at this, kind of stuff.
Funky.
Yeah.
That art is cool. I like it. All right,
yes.
Kyle, can you stump us? Can you stump the room?
No, no, I don't think so. I was trying to think of like weird games that I only saw like once at a friend's house. I remember one, Lester the Unlikely for Super Nintendo, where you like played as this nerd. And I remember playing it at a friend's house and being like, this looks interesting. This looks kind of, you're like this nerdy guy in a jungle, and like I couldn't even get past like the first tree. And I was like, all right, well, let's see what else we got here.
Chris, you got another one just to wow us?
What is another one that I could say? How about Love Match Tennis?
No.
Love Match Tennis was for the Japanese PC 6001 computer, I want to say, and the reason why it's interesting is because it was Yuji Horii, the guy who did Dragon Quest. It was his first game.
Oh,
it was a
that's
tennis
good.
game that he made and was published by Enix. Yeah,
great call.
I just recently got a copy of it after kind of like looking for a long time for old Enix games and stuff like that, and found one on a Japanese website and paid up for it because of its historical importance.
Yeah, you gotta. GRN writes in and says, I was reading reviews for the Cowabunga collection, and one stated that it had no significant value outside of nostalgia. But I find that take to be wildly incorrect. Good news, Chris. He's not siding with that. He says,
thanks.
He says, my nephew absolutely loves beat 'em up style games. They're perfect for younger audiences because of the simple gameplay. I like the Cowabunga collection, and I think it's perfect for connecting people who have nostalgia with young gamers who are still learning the basics. Not every gamer is in the 20 to 30-year-old bracket. I agree. Like, trying to find games that I can play with my nephews, it's like, okay, we go back to brawlers over and over again of like, look, this won't frustrate you and you can just spam your way through it and we'll have a solid time. So yeah, it is a nice way to bridge the divide there.
I feel like these games have held up well. I mean, not everything from that era has held up, right? I mean, but I think that this is a collection of games, and we're very lucky to get to work on that, right? Like we're super lucky to get to work on a collection of games that were these were, Turtles 1 for the NES, best-selling third-party game on that platform.
Really?
It is the only third-party game to do 4 million units.
Wow.
It outsold the Dragon Quest games. I mean, it did it incredibly well. Turtles in Time for the arcade, most played arcade game of 1990 and 1991, as voted by arcade machine operators back in the day, basically in the US. I mean, these were not only some of the biggest, but like in these cases, like the biggest game, of that time period. And so we get to work on these games that are incredible. I mean, again, I say I'd love to do a Mario collection. Like realistically, to get to work with the Turtles games is like, working on some of the most popular games. They kicked ass. Like they were really fun. And yes, I think absolutely, especially like, stuff like SNES Turtles in Time, stuff like Manhattan Project on NES. I mean, the ones that are really well crafted absolutely still hold up.
Yeah. And then also Giorn writes in and says, Dream remake, by the way, Parasite Eve. Great call.
Oh, yeah.
Great call. Boondock Bandit writes in screaming for a Bushido Blade remake. Bushido Blade, yep, we hear you. Christian Jimenez says, I'd like Mystical Ninja Goemon from N64 to be remade, or Snowboard Kids. They can choose.
I can only take one.
Can choose. That's right.
Okay.
Sam Kennedy writes in and says, hey, MinnMax, I have a problem for you. It's a trolley problem. I'm going to name two things, but you have to run over one with your trolley. Okay. Are you ready, Jeff? The last PS4 with PT installed on it, or a playable version of Kirby's Adventure on the GameCube. Which is the trolley running over? Which I had to look into it.
4 people.
What?
The third option.
I guess the GameCube.
Okay, all right, saving PT, interesting. Yeah, I don't know how I dodged this, but I wasn't hip to that legendary game of like this Kirby game on the GameCube that wasn't released. But okay, Chris, are you going with the Queen's Golden Wii or the last Nintendo PlayStation? Which one's getting hit by that trolley?
Queen's Golden Wii, obviously. This is Wii that somebody gold-plated. It's nothing. The last Nintendo PlayStation needs to be saved.
What if I told you that the Queen would not let it go over cold, dead hands? She's clutching it, and you'd have to take out the Queen of England.
She never wanted the Golden Wii. Somebody made the Golden Wii thinking that the Queen of England would like this Golden Wii, dreamed up in some PR shop somewhere. It's like, what are we going to do? Let's make a gold Wii for the Queen of England. And then after everybody finished laughing at that and like firing that person, then they just did it. No idea why.
It's common knowledge that she loved Wii tennis. Everybody
She's a huge fan.
Yes.
Little King Story was her jam. Reminds her of her family. Is the Queen just a complete lunatic? Could you like Here's a better question, I guess. When was the last time the Queen sat down for like an interview? Has it happened ever?
That's a really good question.
I don't know.
All right, send me every interview with every queen, please. Thank you.
We tried to get her for the Cowabunga collection, but she was not available.
She was allowed in the Konami vault. But,
That's right. She was already hanging out there. Yeah. Oh, you too. Okay.
She couldn't reach the binder on the top shelves though. So
she was going. Well, yeah. The Sunset Riders one.
That's right. Oh, don't tempt me. Let's see. Kyle, do you like Sunset Riders, by the way, Chris?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Good. You passed the test.
That's the Konami announcement later this week, right?
Oh God. I don't know if they'd have the gall to call it a fan favorite series. But again, I think it's one of those quietly that also like millions and millions of people.
A single fan favorite.
People like
His
it.
name is Ben Hansen.
Anyways, Kyle, what gets hit by the train? Is it Ben's Steam Deck or the Mall of America? Let's assume empty. An empty version of the Mall of America. What are you running a trolley into?
I mean, I feel like your Steam Deck has already been replaced once.
That's true.
So let's run over your Steam Deck.
Okay.
Because then you can just go play your PC as well, rather than, destroy a gigantic building that employs a large number of people.
I guess.
Also, that would be a fun email to send to Valve of like, can I get my Steam Deck replaced? It got run over by a trolley.
We get this a lot. They have a trolley refund policy.
Yeah.
Bear Commando says, hey, everybody, now that 2 years have passed and we've had time to digest things, how did you really like the quote-unquote blurred transition into the new console generation? We're still seeing cross-gen new releases, and my incentive to buy a new console still feels low. Do you think this approach was good for the industry? How do you personally feel about it compared to previous generation transitions? P.S. Please remake Pokemon Stadium, including the minigames. Okay, can do. Yeah, it feels similar-ish to the last generation, but Chris, do you think it's blurrier this generation, the big transition compared to last?
I think it is. And I mean, I think that so console generation transitions have always been this extremely dangerous moment, right, for a hardware maker, because you're going from we have an installed base of whatever 50 million units going to we have an installed base of 0. Right. And it's like you literally have to start over again. And this has caused chaos because, you have like, it's Sony like doing so well with PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and then PlayStation 3 comes in and they can't get adoption up or PlayStation 3 is too expensive. People don't want to buy it. And suddenly the video game industry that they had a tight grip on like slips through their fingers. And so with now, I think you absolutely see, and this was something I wrote about like way back at Wired. I was like, you are going to, there's an article you can go look at. It's just like you're going to upgrade your video game consoles like you upgrade your phone. And you're not going to need to get the new video game console. And they're going to do this because they do not want this chaos that comes with stopping and starting again. And if you look at the Nintendo Switch also, I mean, Nintendo doesn't have to make another Mario Kart now. Every time Nintendo brought out a new system, it's like they bring out a new system, they've sold 0 units, and it's like, okay, we got to make a Mario, we got to make a Zelda, we got to make a Mario Kart, we got to make a Pokemon. But this whole list of things that they have to make becomes overwhelming, and they can't even really concentrate on like doing anything new or interesting because they're forced to make these new entries. With the Switch, they were just like, all right, great, let's port the Wii U Mario Kart over and we're done. And so what you have now seen is, it's the Switch has the Mario and the Zelda, and then when they eventually do an update to the Switch, they're not going to have to again like start from 0 anymore. I absolutely think I don't actually know anything about this, just to be really clear. Like my personal opinion is that it is going to be very much that blurred transition where they will ease you into, this game requires the new, hardware. I think that this generation, I mean, I again, not being not having to do, journalism day to day anymore, I blessedly don't have to really pay too close attention to this. But like with Xbox, is there anything that's like Series X, like exclusive? Like PS5 has PS5 games, but like, and there's exclusive games there, but like Xbox, it seems like everything is like playable on
X and
Xbox
S or
One.
Okay.
SX and One.
There's definitely going to be stuff that's exclusive, but as of right now, that's a good question. Is there anything current gen exclusive to Xbox? I don't think so.
Right. And I think that's good. I think that's good because it doesn't, especially in this era of like extreme console scarcity, like these things are expensive. You can't even get them if you want to. you're not forced to upgrade, and it's not about making you upgrade to new hardware. It's about just keeping you that loyal customer, like in that ecosystem. That's so much, keeping you subscribed to Game Pass. That that is gold. Like that is what we wanted. That's what you want to do. Like you want to keep that customer engaged, whether they have an Xbox One, and only once the Xbox One X essentially, when that becomes like completely untenable as a piece of hardware, they'll kind of shift people over, but not a moment before, I guess.
Yeah. Thean Benton Filuane, sorry Thean for blowing your name, says, hello there. I'm about to come into possession of a PS5 and was wondering what is the best game to introduce me to the true quote-unquote next-gen experience. Good question. What
one that's on the console.
Just Astrobot?
Astro's Play, yeah. Astro's Playroom, right?
Yeah, sorry, I always get those names confused.
Genuinely, I think that's a great boot up the PS5 and just play that. You don't have to beat it in one sitting or anything, but just like play it for like an hour, and then you can go check out, Last of Us Remake or whatever you want.
I think my answer is still probably Ratchet and Clank. Like, I don't think it blew me away as much as I was hoping, but in terms of like a current gen exclusive, I think that's still maybe the coolest to just soak in. I mean, your purchase Returnal, Kyle.
Yeah, Returnal. Yeah.
But I don't know if that's like, wow, look at this hardware level. I mean, it's a great looking game, but
yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Ratchet is the more show-offy game.
Yeah. I don't know. What is on the horizon for Sony that's going to be the like wowza? Because I mean, God of War split gen. I don't even think that one. It's going to look good again, no doubt, but I don't think it's going to be the unbelievable choice. Even Horizon, like again, it looks amazing, but it's not like it's literally capable of running on a launch PS4.
Yeah, I don't know if that's how people are going to buy consoles anymore, based on like, oh, look, there's this extremely noticeable graphical improvement from the last iteration. I think it's more going to be like, if you're looking at it from the perspective of like, I had an Xbox One X, what does the game look like on Xbox Series X? It's not going to be as much of a leap. It's really going to be about like, I have an Xbox One, or I had not that anybody has a PS3, you know what I mean? But it's going to be like, if people are going to wait, it's like with phones again, like,
yep.
I understand that like the next iPhone, the graphics are marginally better, but it's like, I'm going to wait like 3 years until I feel like, oh, okay, it's really time for me to upgrade my old clunky phone to the new phone. And I feel like we just got to get to this point where it's like less necessary for a player to constantly be buying that new hardware.
Yeah, for sure. People watching us live, Forrest Hollingsworth suggests Final Fantasy 16 as like the next PlayStation exclusive that's going to wow people. That could be. I think that's a good looking game. I just think it's been in development for so long. I don't know if it's going to be the wow showstopper. But Tokyo Game Life says, "Hey, MinnMax, for games that need to be remade, Panzer Dragoon Saga immediately comes to mind. That's a great choice.
Saga specifically.
Last Archer wants to see a Rock Band remake with like a deeper campaign. That's an interesting choice. Alexi wants to go with Sly Cooper. Virgil B says, my top 5 games that need remakes: Power Stone, Mega Man Legends, Sonic Adventure, The Bouncer, and God Hand.
The Bouncer.
Honorable mention, Harvest Moon, Friends of Mineral Town. I feel like I understand you on a visceral level, Virgil. I know what type of gamer you are, and I like you. Mega Man Legends.
Did they not redo Friends of Mineral Town recently?
I don't think so. Maybe they named something that was like
it was a Friends
connected
of some
to
other
it?
town.
Yeah, there's a lot of Friends. Mega Man Legends, the remake would be interesting because I love those games, but I feel like that janky polygonal PS1 look is so intrinsic to the vibe that like if it was just a great looking version of Mega Man Volnut running around, I don't know. I don't think it would feel like Mega Man Legends, it's a tough one.
Oh, Poly is really in right now, so I'd love to see them just simply bring it back. I think you do Mega Man Legends with quality of life improvements, basically.
Yes.
Like you just make it so it's less janky to play it, and then I think that the visual style just works.
I think you're right. James Pies writes in and says, hey, 2 of my favorite games of all time that could really use remakes are Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, and Prince of Persia, Sands of Time. Sounds like a slam dunk, doesn't it? What could go wrong? You little stinker.
Ouch.
And then James says, thanks for being the best competitor to, quote, Hideo Kojima presents Brain Structure. Yep. That's how we see ourselves as a podcast, is just a competitor for Hideo Kojima's brain structure.
Take him down.
Yeah. Garrett Wainstock says, remake Billy Hatcher, Dark Summit. Oh, boy.
I like the sequel.
I have not thought about... No, Dark Summit is that separate snowboarding game.
Yes.
I remember.
Although
that,
I do like your fan theory, Kyle, of Billy Hatcher : Dark Summit. I would like to play that.
I was like,
game.
I thought there was only one Billy Hatcher game. I don't remember Dark Summit. Okay.
And then Geist and Lost Kingdoms. I'm surprised Billy Hatcher hasn't come back as like a mobile game or something. It feels like there needs to be some way to lean into that. But I think Yuji Naka is just...
He's probably Monkey Ball, right?
Yeah, probably. Dominic Pagelli says, how about instead of game remakes that usually improve the graphics, I'd like to see a remake tackle a game that had serious potential but was hindered by significant performance issues. One that comes to mind is Kingdom Come Deliverance, a game I'd love to love. Jeff, remember when you reviewed that?
I do remember that.
That was a weird one. Fred DeNovo went Silent Hill 2 and 3, naturally. Mick Monka here. It's the ultimate video game Wild West standoff. I don't know if y'all have heard about this. The first game to get released is the quickest gun in the West. Okay, there's a lot of lore here. So it's up to the MinnMax crew as the sheriffs of gaming to be the judge and declare the winner. So ultimately the question is, which of these games is going to release first?
Oh,
okay, here we go.
Anson, this is just too stressful for me. So I'm afraid I have to duck out early.
What are you talking about?
I gotta go a little early today. I'm sorry. It's a long episode, and I can't take this game. It's too intense. So you guys are gonna have to play without me.
Okay, bye, Kyle.
It's lovely meeting you, Chris.
Bye, Kyle.
Thanks for coming on.
Nice to meet you.
See you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Lovely as always. Ben, I'll see you next week.
Okay, cool. Bye. All right, so which of these games is releasing first? Mother 3 in the US, Half-Life 3, Beyond Good and Evil 2, Star Citizen, or the final part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake? Which game will actually...
So this is a fantasy game.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to say the final part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, because I think they're like that's something that's like actually like being worked towards like at this moment. Yeah.
I could see 2030 that happening. If you had to bet money though, Chris, do you feel like rest of your life Mother 3 will never be released in the United States? It won't get a remake, anything fancy like that?
How long are we saying I'm going to live? Because I think that I think that eventually it will be.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of when, and but I mean that might be like it might be 10 or 20 years from now or something like that. I don't really know. When I feel like eventually there will be some official release, and I think it would probably end up being dovetailed with. If it were to get a deluxe re-release or something like that in Japan, or if there was some movement to, collect all the games together into a physical release in Japan or something like that, then you can say, oh, okay, well, we'll localize that. But I mean, at this point, there's nothing to release because Mother 3 it's not even so much as available on, Switch or Nintendo Switch Online in Japan or anything like that because there's no Game Boy Advance. Anything. So, but I think that I do think that the Final Fantasy VII Remake project, like now that that's rolling, I think we'll see them finish that up.
But realistically, that's going to be like 2030. And I know everyone likes to make jokes, but Star Citizen, I feel like is probably launching before that. Whatever the hell it is.
What constitutes a launch for Star Citizen, though?
They'd have to frame it as 1.0, I guess. Or have some big event. I don't know. I don't know what that would even look like. You're right. That is tough. Like, why would they ever declare a starting line?
What's the motivation?
Why launch it?
Right.
When they're making so much money, it's like what's even the point? I think we're looking at like we're asking, when are they going to launch it? And it's just sort of like for all the people that are sort of already playing it and deep into it, it's just sort of like I don't think they even the expectations are completely different.
Yep, totally agree. Shane C writes in and says, hey, sorry if this is more of a get a load of this type submission than a question, but kind of funny Snowbike Mike's helium intro. Sorry, there's a lot of lore here, Chris. Sorry to confuse you. His helium intro jogged something in my memory. Have you ever heard the audio recording of President Lyndon Johnson talking to the commander of the original Sea Lab? For science-y pressure-related reasons, the atmosphere in the Sea Lab used helium instead of nitrogen. So the scientists aboard sounded like they just inhaled a helium balloon at all times. Hearing the President of the United States have a serious conversation with a man loaded up on helium is very interesting. I have a clip. This is 3 minutes in to this recording. You can find it on YouTube here. And so it's 3 minutes of them being like, okay, patching it through. Do we have clear? Are the comms working? Do we have communication with astronaut Scott Carpenter? And then it's just the operators and everybody being like, I don't think the comms are good. Something is going wrong, but they just cannot wrap their minds around how effed up this guy sounds. The fact that he's sucking helium in this underwater sea lab. So here's a bit here.
Synthetic helium gas. Atmosphere. Yes, and it makes his voice sound garbled and real high.
They're trying to explain it.
Oh, I see. Okay, wait a minute. Now we'll try it. Is he got him on the line now, Operator? Yes, he's on the line.
Scott, I wonder if anybody understands this.
Well, I don't know. The operator said that she knew what I was trying to tell her, but apparently she didn't.
Oh. Well, we just sit tight and see.
All right.
Big process.
Scott, do you read me all right?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Read you loud and clear. How me?
Fine. Well, Scott, I'm mighty glad to hear from you. You've convinced me and all the nation that whether you're going up or down, you have the courage and the skill to do a fine job.
Well, thank you very much. There were a lot of other people.
You get the idea. Do you think they gave President Johnson a heads up on what was going to happen there? Or do you think he was just rolling with the sound of whatever this guy's voice was?
I have no idea what was even going on in that clip. I have to be honest with you.
Yep. No,
I tried to pay attention, but I wasn't able to.
I get it. Look, Chris, I get it. You are personifying everybody listening to this podcast saying, what am I listening to at this moment? Including these parts. Ricky Winterborn writes in and says, hey, missed joke opportunity, everybody. Last week, Leo said, I saw them shooting the film A Serious Man, and Ben should have said, oh, really? When he should have said, are you serious, man? That's a great point. That is a missed joke opportunity. Nick from Atlanta writes in and says, hey, missed joke opportunity in the podcast last week when talking about a Pokemon game set in Minnesota. Janet said Pokemon Minnesota would be the one nobody wants, but nobody mentioned that you should have called them Pokemon Minneapolis and Pokemon St. Paul for the two versions. Yeah, we blew it. We blew it, and we apologize for our sins. Let's see. People want remakes. People want remakes of Fallout 1 and 2. People want a remake of Seaman in 2022. People want to remake, Lord Sturden here wants a remake of Eternal Darkness, the original Paper Mario, and then all of Factor 5 Star Wars games. Absolutely. We're with you. And then John Killslayer Skovic writes in and says, hey, MinnMaxers, and welcome Chris Kohler. John has an announcement here. They say, for the whole month of September, we wanted everybody to know that the MinnMax community will be having its first ever community game jam called MinnHacks. A game jam is where teams and individuals get together to try and make cool little indie games and prototypes and learn along the way. This jam is not a competition, and it's open to absolutely anyone of any skill level and any platforms and mediums. You can even make a board game, Jeffem. You can make a game in Dreams. You can make the next AAA Unreal game. When this podcast goes live on September 1st, the jam will be underway, but that doesn't mean you're too late to sign up. Find more info, including finding a team form. Including the Find a Team form on the MinnMax Discord's MinnHacks Game Jam channel. Additionally, we have a special treat for MinnMax Show listeners, the exclusive reveal of the theme for this year's Game Jam. It is, drumroll, Jeffem. The theme is Getting Better. Make a story game about becoming a better person, an RPG about getting stronger, a high-score chase game, a business management sim, or anything else you can dream up. We look forward to seeing you all in the MinnMax Discord in September for the first official MinnMax Game Jam. So good luck to everybody. They say turnout's already been exciting, and it's going to be really exciting to see what people churn out by the end of this thing. So again, jump in the Discord, and you can find the home there and find a team, and no skill level barrier. Jump in, please. All right. That's it. Chris, you're paying attention. What do you like for a question of the week?
Oh boy. That was a lot of questions.
It was.
I think that we had a good discussion off of the sort of out of left field, but still sort of on topic question of favorite animated show as a kid, and does it hold up? So yep. I think that engendered some good discussion. I like the sort of connection to the Ninja Turtles.
There we go.
I'm going to say that's the one.
There we go. Nick S., otherwise known as Biscuit. Congratulations. You are getting a prize from I Am 8-Bit. They'll ship it out. We'll reach out to you and get your address and all that fun stuff. And now it's time for a little segment that we like to call Get a Load of This, everybody. All right, Chris. We got little factoids, things to share. They can be very boring. They can be as boring as Jeffem's here. If you want to toss one out there, Jeffem, show them how it's done.
You guys do it first.
Okay, great.
Well, this one's very Minnesota specific, but get a load of this. This is a news article, an MN Business news article that says Chris Lindahl files trademark for his iconic arms out pose.
Oh my God.
Apparently he is trademarking it, but he's the trademark says it describes it as a depiction of a human shown from the chest up, smiling and looking straight ahead with arms outstretched slightly higher than perpendicular to the torso and fingers splayed.
That is as disgusting as like trademarking the Nemesis system is this stupid real estate agent stupid pose from Minnesota billboards.
There's good news because he says in a statement, we're excited about applying to register the arms out, quote unquote, symbol as a trademark for our real estate and related services. Our big goal here is to protect our brand for our team and our clients, of course. And he says, don't worry, Ben, this is not about us trying to stop the general public from holding their arms out or doing the pose.
Come at me, Chris.
Yep.
Fantastic.
You're still good.
Hey, get a load of this, everybody. I think this was either in Reggie's book or the Awada Ass book. I forget where, but it was really interesting hearing it brought up on the Kit and Krista podcast, which I'm a fan of. They're friends of ours, all that stuff. But they were talking on the most recent episode of that podcast about how strangely serious it is within Nintendo, these rules that you can't call anything a surprise and you can't call anything a success. That those two words within Nintendo corporate are very much frowned upon, because if you call it a surprise, expectations are going to go wild, and apparently Japan hates anything being called a surprise because it's a very specific terminology in their mind of when it can actually delight people. And apparently this comes from Iwata, the idea of like, it seemed like he had the message of don't call yourself a success, don't call things a success, because that's the first thing that you'll say before everything crumbles. And just keep working is kind of his overall message. And apparently it's got to the point of, in like Nintendo meetings and stuff, if you had some event over the weekend, you're like, yeah, it was pretty successful, and you kind of moved on. Like, even that, I guess, is like weird corporate taboo that everyone's like, like it's like you just swore is the way that they describe it.
And your chair falls.
It really seemed that way based on the way they described it. It was horrifying to hear. Chris, what do you got, man?
I don't have anything. I'm sorry, I didn't learn anything this week. I'm sorry.
Give us like a factoid about the turtles. You must have learned some little tidbit that we find interesting.
Oh, sure. Yeah, okay. Okay, what is something really interesting? Okay, get a load of this. You know what? This is actually, it's funny because I was thinking about this because we were at Comic-Con, showing Cowabunga Collection in San Diego. We had Kevin Eastman there as well. So we did our panel with Kevin Eastman and talked, showed off all the games. And we said to ourselves secretly, if somebody asked a really good question, we're going to give them a signed poster that we had hidden. And so during the panel, a girl came up and asked about this one character in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. And she said, hey, there's always been this rumor that Asuka in Tournament Fighters was originally going to be based on Mitsu, who is this character from the Ninja Turtles movie, the Ninja Turtles movie 3.
Okay.
Is there any, truth to that rumor? And we were able to say, and you can actually find out for yourself, if you go into the design documents, in Cowabunga Collection, look through the design documents for SNES Tournament Fighters, you will see documents in which the character of Asuka is originally referred to as Mitsu.
There we go.
So in fact, so she won the poster. She asked a very, very good question. And yes, we finally can reveal, that it is absolutely the truth based on these design documents that character was originally based on the character from the movie, but was changed essentially, down the line. So there's a fun piece of Turtles trivia for you. That was something I learned a long time ago, but people, I guess, only found out on Tuesday. So
that's awesome. Unearthing history. That's great. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching or listening to this episode of the MinnMax Show podcast. If you enjoy this content, if you enjoy all of MinnMax's content, you can help support it directly by going to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. You can unlock the nearly 3-hour version of our travelogue touring Minneapolis with Janet Garcia and Sarah Brzorski and Leo, and Jeff Lem's there, and Jeff Cork and Joe Juba and Elise Favis and a bunch of other folks make a surprise appearance on a Diaz. So I hope you enjoy that travelogue, even the public version on YouTube. Any help sharing, it's appreciated. Also, we just had an interview go up on Monday with Jim Warnell, who is an old, I say old, he's a young man, but he's a logo designer, graphic designer within Nintendo. He left a while ago, but he designed the logo for Animal Crossing, Metroid Prime, Advance Wars, Wind Waker, a ton of stuff from that kind of GameCube GBA era. And so that interview is with him and Corey Schmitz, who's one of the most prolific logo designers these days in the game industry. So it's those two talking logo design. So if you're interested in that, you can always check that out on our YouTube channel or unlock the podcast version of that in the bonus podcast feed. Any help supporting what we're doing here is appreciated. And Jeffem, just so you know, people have been trying to figure out the mystery based on our clues last week of what game we're tackling next for the deepest dive. Because Chris, we have like this whole game club series where we encourage everybody to play along with us. Then we break a game into sections and have like the best, most thorough discussion about these games on the internet is the way we like to bill it. And last week we said it was going to be the oldest game we've ever done for any game club or deepest dive. It is a genre we've never tackled before. It's going to be lightly relevant. Do you have any guesses, Jeffem?
I know what it is.
Yeah, that's true. All right, what we're tackling for the deepest dive, everybody. Drum roll, Jeffem. Give it to us. Here we go. The next, no, but like be excited about the drum roll, Jeffem. The next deepest dive, ladies and gentlemen, is Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis.
Oh,
thank you. Have you played that game, Chris?
I have not played. I've played so many of those games, including the Indiana Jones Last Crusade graphic adventure, and I keep meaning to start Fate of Atlantis, and I haven't started it yet.
Yeah, okay, well, here's an opportunity if you want to play through with us. We're breaking the game up into two sections. The first discussion will be happening on Monday, September 12th, and then the second will be happening on Monday, September 19th. It's roughly a 7-hour game, old adventure game. It's available for dirt cheap on Steam. It does technically run on a Steam Deck, which is great, but it's an old file up there on Steam, so it's a little bit of a clunker to get rolling, but you can do it. The game is from 1992. It's an old adventure game that my entire life I've heard people be like, it's actually one of Indy's better adventures. It's better than Temple of Doom. Like, people are very into Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, so I can't wait to unpack that experience. I think it's going to be an interesting one to have an adventure game for the deepest dive. So please join us for that adventure. It should be a wonderful time. We're going to try, the cast is still 100% being locked down, but Leo Vader is for sure in, and then we're going to get other folks as well, and there might even be an extra bonus on top of that. So play along with us, and then submit your thoughts. And the reason we're doing this is because I've always wanted to play it. None of us have ever played it. And then also, it seems like they're going to announce and reveal the first big trailer for the 5th Indiana Jones movie at D23. So this is going to be the weekend after that hit. So hopefully, because the trailer, it seemed like, was hinted at in a podcast recently, it's going to be the same editor as the person who directed or edited the Black Panther Wakanda Forever trailer, which, I don't know if you recall, it rocked the internet. It was such an amazing trailer. So I would put money on the idea of this first Indiana Jones 5 trailer, like, blowing people away and getting people very much in Indiana Jones mood. So let's try and capitalize on that by playing through Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis together. Shazira's asking live with the Backstage Pass tier, are you announcing this on Twitter today too? No, we'll save that for when we have like the reveal video and the cast lockdown and all that stuff. But just so you know, coming up in early September, play through it with us. All right, Chris, thank you so much for being here, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. If people want to follow you, your work, where do you recommend they go?
So I'm on Twitter as Kobunheat, Kobunheat is my Twitter handle. Hit up digitaleclipse.com to see, what it is we've been working on. And, those are good places to start.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you everybody for watching or listening, and thanks to everybody who supports MinnMax at the $50 tier, otherwise known as the Game Champion tier. Even just for 1 month, we're going to have new games coming up next episode that are refreshing here, but you should know that officially the Game Champion of Viva Pinata is Nick Philo. Good job, Nick, locking it in. Zachary Pliggy chose once again Superman 64 to be the game champion of, for some reason. Spider Dan has chosen Illusion of Gaia again. They're officially the champions of those games. A lot of great choices. And we should mention that, we had that poll of former game champions for the last several months, and Legend of Zelda Wind Waker won that poll, which led to this interview with Jim Warrenell and Corey Schmidt. So that is how that content is moving forward, and we're having another piece of bonus Wind Waker content as well coming up soon, so look alive for that. So thanks to Otsego12 for being the game champion of Wind Waker and making all that stuff happen. All right, that's it for this long episode, everybody. Appreciate your support. Be good, have fun, let's go!